The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
Americans have taken a lot of hits in the last year since Donald Trump was selected president by a small number of people in a few electoral states, even though the vast majority of Americans, well, 3 million to be exact, preferred Hillary Clinton, preferred a Democrat over Donald Trump. But, you know, hey, you got to respect the slave owners of the South who got, you know, the Second Amendment written in there to protect their slave patrols, and who got the representation, the electoral college in there, so that they could make sure that they had their interests defended. It's tragic, but here it is. So now we are looking at dangers, to our healthcare system. As a result of the Republicans, we're looking at dangers to the climate. In fact, the possibility, well, not the possibility, the reality that we are in the midst of the sixth great extinction. And we're talking, when we talk extinctions, we're talking, major problems that have, essentially destroyed the Earth in the past. As climate change, nuclear war, the risk has gone up with Donald Trump. Tax breaks for the super wealthy, public education. Betsy DeVos committed to destroying our public education system and replacing it with a for-profit one so that billionaire families like hers can make money while kids go to school. Sure, yeah, hey, more money, more dividend checks coming while you're sitting on your butt around the pool, right? This is where we're at. And who's telling the truth about this? Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV needs your help. This is our fall or holiday season. I guess it would be holiday season, end of the year pledge drive. We need your help right now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Please call Free Speech TV. Please call Free Speech TV now and make a contribution. With a $30 donation, they'll send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker through the $30 donation. With a $60 donation, you get the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar. So, with all of the various talents and different pages and whatnot. With a $120 donation, you get Van Jones' book, Beyond the Messy Truth, and a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. It's with a $120 donation. With a $240 donation, you get Van Jones' book, Beyond the Messy Truth, plus Claudia Rankine's book, Citizen, plus the university bumper sticker. With a $360 gift, you get my book, Unequal Protection, plus Beyond the Messy Truth by Van Jones, plus Citizen by Claudia Rankine, and the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. That's all with a $340 gift. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch. And, or we can get a bunch of people coming to Portland and have a meet and greet pizza party, whatever works, but we'll work it out. Or occasionally I'll be back in D.C. In fact, I'll be in D.C. all next week. So, maybe we could meet there. So those are the premiums. You'll notice, by the way, $120, $240, $360, $30, and $60. All of these numbers are divisible by 12. And the reason why, with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month for a year. You can't, a $30 donation, I don't think you can put $2.50 on a credit card, or maybe you can, but it's probably not worth the effort. But with a 60, the expense, because the credit card companies charge free speech every time they run something, and it's a very small amount, but on a $2.50 charge, it adds up. But anyway, So with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month that gets charged to your credit card for a year. With a $120 donation, it's $10 a month. With a $240 donation, it's $20 a month. And with a $360 donation, that's $30 a month, all charged every month. So you know, you can make a $360 contribution, get those gifts, but it only costs, you know, $30 a month. It's you know, less than going out for dinner. So, well, I guess it depends on where you go, but you understand the point. In D.C., it's a lot less than going out to dinner. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV is doing really important work. Fewer than 2% of Free Speech TV viewers ever call and make a donation. So Free Speech TV right now is being supported by Free Speech TV's 2%. Please, if you're part of the 98% and you've never made a contribution to Free Speech TV, consider joining now. Consider making a contribution now. It means a lot to Free Speech TV. It means a lot to me and to our program. It keeps us going. It keeps Free Speech TV going. And of all the times in the political history of the United States, I can't think of any time that has been more critical, more crucial, more important, more vital in my lifetime than right now. I mean, yeah, there have been some real high points, but having a madman in the White House, having absolute, total, rampant corruption where the Republican Party has been completely bought out by a half a dozen or a couple of dozen billionaires, this is a crisis. This is an absolute, flat-out, screaming crisis. Please call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. We're going to talk about the great Republican tax scam, and hopefully if Brian Darling will call into the number that he's got on his Skype screen so that we can get broadcast quality audio for him, we can put him on the air. But I can't use Skype audio here. The median household income now, this from Zach Carter over at Huffington Post, has grown by just 1.5%, $839 a year since 2008. 1.5%. Yet, the economic output of the United States has grown 10 times that rate, roughly 15%. The stock market has grown 40%. Half of all the gains from the sale of stocks and bonds accrue to households that make over $1 million a year. The 400 wealthiest households take 3/4 of their very substantial annual incomes, Zach Carter writes, from financial investments. This is not about stimulating growth or investment. This is class war, he writes. So basically, the Republicans, they want to have a $6 trillion tax cut. $1.5 trillion of that, they're just right on the front end, since they already passed a budget that raised the debt ceiling by $1.5 trillion. The first $1.5 trillion of that is coming from just, you know, eliminating or just raising the debt ceiling and raising the U.S. debt, which is like crazy. In addition to that, a $1.5 trillion corporate tax cut goes straight to people who own stock in corporations. Another $696 billion would go toward repealing the alternative minimum tax, basically the only tax that Donald Trump pays. Another $596 billion would go to assist so-called pass-through entities, small corporations like mine, except that I don't qualify for this because I don't make enough money and I'm not rich enough. You've got to be able to play all these games, right? And so, yeah, the hedge funds, rich people's investment vehicles, corporations doing business in the Caymans, I don't know. Repeal of the estate tax, that's going to help those folks out. $47.5 billion strip from people paying student debt or attending graduate school. This is going to pretty much end post-collegiate education. I mean, this, unless you have a trust fund, forget about going to college after the Republican At least if you want to be in graduate school. At least if the Republicans have their way. Republicans would bleed municipalities and force cutbacks in public education and infrastructure. The bill would strike a further $39 billion for money we're currently using to build hospitals, affordable housing, and university buildings. It ends a $54 billion tax credit for research into rare diseases. Why? So that we can have tax cuts on the top 1%. It ends a deduction for personal medical expenses. Why? So we can have tax cuts on the top 1%. And then it says to companies that have been stashing their money overseas, no problem. We'll give you a 14% cash, repayment on that. So, Bruce Bartlett, who was arguably the architect of the Reagan-Bush tax cuts, said, and I quote, "In 1986, we slashed the corporate tax rate from 46 to 34%, but wages fell." And then the commentary goes on to say, likewise, President George W. Bush's tax cut in 2001 and 2003 produced one of the weakest economic expansions in American history, and those tax cuts were, in fact, in place when the Great Recession of 2007-2009 happened. So what will happen when we give Apple and Microsoft and all these other giant corporations hundreds of billions of dollars, or let them bring, the money? They're essentially ill-gotten gains from offshore back here to the United States. What will happen? Well, Bank of America and Merrill Lynch surveyed 300 executives, major CEOs, big companies. What are you going to do with the billions of dollars you're going to make from this tax holiday on repatriated funds, on money brought back into the United States? You going to build factories? You going to hire people? No. Number one response, we're going to pay down our debt. Yeah, right. Number two response, we're going to do stock buybacks. And the number three response, we're going to do mergers. This is crazy. I mean, it's just, there's no other description for this other than this is crazy. And look at what happened in Kansas. They passed this giant tax cut. And what happened? The Republican legislature of Kansas had to, over the objections of Sam Brownback, the governor, they had to raise taxes just to keep the state from collapsing. And this is after they made major cuts to education and all kinds of stuff. This is the Republican tax cut plan. And it stinks. Meanwhile, I think it would be useful to, just for the record, I keep hearing Republicans going on television going, well, we want to do what Jack Kennedy did, right? He cut that top tax rate from 91% to 74%. Well, actually, Jack Kennedy didn't do that. Lyndon Johnson did that. But he invoked Jack Kennedy because Jack Kennedy did want to raise taxes on rich people. He called it increasing revenue, right? Raising taxes and increasing revenue are the exact same thing. Now, how did Jack Kennedy want to raise taxes? He wanted to close loopholes. He wanted to close the 3 martini lunch deduction. Some of the expensive deductions that businesses have, the luxury deductions. And what did he want to use that money for? He wanted to spend more on education. He wanted to spend more on housing. But the Republicans keep lying about Jack Kennedy. They keep lying and saying, Jack Kennedy wanted a giant tax cut. And when we got it, the economy got better. Well, actually, when Lyndon Johnson dropped the tax rate from 91% to 74%, members of the Kennedy family started paying more in taxes, not less. It was the exact opposite from this Republican plan. And here's Jack Kennedy debating Richard Nixon in 1960, saying, I want to raise taxes, I want to increase revenues, and here's how I'm going to spend the money. So the next time you hear some Republican lying to you on television, remember this. Can you play this out of my computer, Sean? Thank you. Here's Jack Kennedy.
I think it's possible to gain a $700 million to $1 billion through tax changes, which I believe would close up loopholes on dividend withholding, on expense accounts.
You notice he said gain, and he said dividend withholding, right? He wants people making their money off dividends to pay more in taxes. Now, how is he going to spend that money? He lays it out right here. Here we go, Sean. This is how he's going to spend that money.
So in my judgment, we would spend more money in this administration on aid to education. We'd spend more money on housing. We'd spend more money, and I hope more wisely, on defense than this administration has done. Mr. Nixon misstates my figures constantly, which is, of course, his right. But the fact of the matter is, here is where I stand, and I just want to have it on the public record.
Jack Kennedy begging Republicans to tell the truth about what he wants to do, begging the news media to tell the truth about how he wants to raise taxes on people in order to stimulate the economy by putting that money into an investment in public education, public health, public housing. Jack Kennedy talking about how he wanted to raise tax. And in fact, when they did it, yeah, they dropped the top marginal tax rate, but they closed the loopholes. Now, the Republicans are doing the exact opposite. They're actually adding new loopholes. Oh, you're rich and you don't pay taxes? Great. You don't have to pay the alternative minimum tax anymore. Oh, you're a young person who's never worked and doesn't care to work, but you would love to have $1 billion? Well, even though you don't deserve it, you haven't done anything for it, you're just a member of the Lucky Sperm Club. Well, when Grandpa or Daddy kicks off, you can have that money tax-free. No problem. Gift of Uncle Sam. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I want to go through Jack Kennedy's 1962 speech on, or his 63 speech on peace after this. Stick around. And welcome back. Jared in Downington, Pennsylvania. Hey, Jared, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom. I want to talk about this tax bill going on in the Senate. And apparently the report I read from the New York Times is that this is going to raise taxes on the poor and middle class. And it's so Orwellian sometimes how these Republicans tend to, spin things. For example, I saw, Trump's Twitter feed about, how he endorses the pedophile, rapist, racist, homophobic Roy Moore over the civil rights prosecuting KKK attorney Doug Jones. And when he said that, he said he was weak on crime. Well, we know what that code word means. And he also said he wanted to raise taxes. And I just started laughing uncontrollably. It's just like how they spin this stuff. They want to spin that they're protecting the internet by, getting rid of net neutrality. So, it's just insane.
Yeah.
And I hope we can push this tax bill to just any way we can to kill it. But I think one of the key things we should focus on is just this tax increase that I don't think the Democrats have been, as talking about as much as that. Because I think that's something, something clear and understanding that most people can understand. This is going to hurt you. This is going to raise your taxes. And you want the billionaires, the people making more, you want them to, be getting more in this tax bill so they can be getting off like bandits. So what do you think? You think the messaging has been a little off for the Democrats? Because I haven't been seeing that much about the Democrats talking about this.
Yeah, I would love to see the Democratic Party expressing far more outrage about a $1 trillion cut to Medicaid and a $500 billion cut to Medicare. The staff of the Joint Committee on Taxation and the Congressional Budget Office just released an analysis of the impact of this tax bill on pretty much everybody. People making less than $10,000, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100, and then 100 to 2, 2 to 5, 100,000, 500,000 to $1 million and over. And here's how it plays out. In 2019, if you make less than $10,000, you are going to lose $1,540
whether it's from paying more in taxes because the bottom tax rate goes from 10% up to 12%, or whether it's from losing money that you would have received from the government in the form of grants or tax breaks or tax credits. By 2023, a person making less than $10,000 will be losing $7,400 a year, whereas a person making $1 million or over will get a tax cut of $13,000. Somebody making over $100,000 is going to make $75,000 to $100,000 is going to make an extra $18,000. Somebody making $1 million or $100,000 to $200,000 make an extra $52,000. But if you're that's tax cuts. But if you're making $20,000 to $30,000, you're going to pay an additional $11,000. Either pay it or lose it. That's pretty breathtaking stuff. Jared, thanks for the call. Let's check in with Brian Darling and see what he has to say about this right after the break. Stick around.
On April 15th,
this year's election results have generated fear, sadness, and despair.
In the days and months ahead,
our democracy may face a crisis of historic proportions.
But there is good news.
there is good news.
There is good news. Thousands of people are stepping forward in solidarity,
Resistance,
and resolve.
we join them.
We join them
we join them
in standing with the most vulnerable communities among us.
Those most likely to be targeted by new restrictions and policies.
We will tell their stories here.
Here
on Free Speech TV.
We will lift their voices here.
Here on Free Speech TV.
In the difficult times ahead, know that we will be with you
24 hours a day.
Every day.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
There are millions of us.
Raising our voices and hearts together as one.
We've got your back.
We got your back.
Free Speech TV's got your back.
The revolution is in progress.
I'm Nina Turner, and you're watching Free Speech TV.
Darling is on the line with us. He is a contributor to the Conservative Review, former staffer for Rand Paul. ConservativeReview.com is the website. You can tweet him at Brian H. Darling, spelled just like you might think. Brian, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me on.
So I have laid this thing out. I mean, today in the Washington Post, the CBO pointing out that by 2023, average working people who are making less than $30,000 a year are going to see their taxes go up or their benefit or their government benefits go down to the tune of well over $10,000, whereas rich people are going to see a tax cut. How are you guys, how do you think you're going to succeed in selling this thing that's just sticking it to anybody who makes under $50,000 a year?
Look, I agree that conflating health care with tax cuts is probably not a great idea because ultimately individuals will get a tax cut. The problem is if you're a low-income person, you're going to get stuck with higher health care costs, according to CBO and according to the Joint Committee on Taxation. So, they've run an analysis. They do. I do have real concerns about this bill. I wish it was a bigger tax cut. I wish more individuals were getting a cut on the individual side. I know that they set an arbitrary limit of $1.5 trillion in cuts, and that's caused them problems where they've put more weight on the corporate side than they probably should have, and less weight on giving tax cuts to everybody on the individual side.
So, when Obama passed the American Stimulus Act, I think it was called, the AMA, or there was one other letter in the acronym. But anyhow, when Obama passed this, Paul Ryan came out and said, this will not create any jobs, this will not produce any stimulus. And it actually, it worked fairly well. Actually, here's what Paul Ryan said, quote, now keep in mind, this was 40% of an $800 billion stimulus of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, ARRA, February 2009. What did taxpayers get out of the Obama stimulus? More debt. The money wasn't just spent and wasted, it was borrowed, spent, and wasted. Mitch McConnell said also, 0 jobs, more debt. How is this different?
Well, that bill did contain some tax cuts and tax relief.
The largest middle-class tax cut in the history of the United States. that bill had.
A lot of government spending in it, too. And
sure.
This bill...
$500 billion.
Yeah. I mean, they're different in many ways. But, I mean, ultimately, I think that even President Obama advocated for a lowering of the corporate tax rate. And that, I think, across the board, people would see as a good idea if it was married to real corporate tax reform. But, you know, I mean, you've noted that a lot of the exemptions are still in the code.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no corporate. I pay corporate taxes, right? I mean, that's like they're, you know, I know what I can deduct, and they're still there, right? You know, everything. In fact, they're adding things. They're adding accelerated depreciation. They're adding more tax breaks for corporations, and the pass-through entity thing is amazing because you know the company that I own, this radio show, is a pass-through entity. Technically, it's an LLC, but apparently it's not structured in the way that very, very rich people can structure their LLCs. I guess I have to, you know, spend, well, money I don't have on a CPA to set up something that I can't afford in order to be able to take tax breaks that I probably don't need. Because like most small companies, you know, pretty much we don't pay much in taxes because we don't make that much profit. This is just crazy, Brian. We have got about 2 minutes left. Are you suggesting, I hear you kind of backpedaling on this, are you suggesting that the Republicans are going to blow it? I mean, you've got a couple of Republican senators, you know, Bob Corker and Jeff Flake, who have basically zero loyalty to Donald Trump.
No, I think it's going to be tough. The Senate's going to pass something, maybe. I mean, it's going to be very close. My former boss, Rand Paul, said he'd vote for it. I mean, as a whole, I like this bill. I think it's a good bill. I don't think it's great. I don't like a lot of aspects of it, and I do think Republicans have caused themselves huge political problems by the arguments you're making, that this is not enough relief for middle to lower income people and more relief for corporations and the rich. I mean, as a political issue, that's going to be troublesome. And if the economy doesn't rebound and do a lot better and hit 4% like the president's promised before the elections, could cause some problems electorally for Republicans going into the election cycle.
Yeah, Brian, if Republicans really want an economic stimulus to you know help juice the economy and make Trump look good, why not raise the cap on Social Security and lower the rate? We know from the experience of the Obama stimulus that if you can reduce Social Security taxes by 1 point for a year and a half, which is what they did, there's a huge and measurable stimulus because it's people on the bottom end of the income distribution who are you know, having fewer taxes taken out of their paychecks. They have more money to spend.
Well, you're would be completely changing the program from a program where you're supposed to pay in and receive what you paid in to a program that's just like the other welfare programs. And if you blew it up, it would be a huge tax increase on a lot of individuals, but it would just change the nature of the program. If we're all in favor of changing this program over, then sign me up, because I guess I'd probably have more disposable income if we lowered the tax, the Social Security tax.
But why should I pay, you know, 6% Social Security tax and Bill Gates pays 1/100th of 1%?
Well, I presume he doesn't take, he takes out what he puts in. I mean, he's going to get exactly what he put into that program.
Okay.
And it was
Brian Darling, conservativereview.com. You can tweet him at, hang on just a second.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
You can tweet him at Brian H. Darling. Brian, thank you for dropping by.
Thank you.
It's great talking with you. We'll be back. Americans have taken a lot of hits in the last year since Donald Trump was selected president by a small number of people in a few electoral states, even though the vast majority of Americans, well, 3 million to be exact, preferred Hillary Clinton, preferred a Democrat over Donald Trump. But, you know, hey, you got to respect the slave owners of the South who got, you know, the Second Amendment written in there to protect their slave patrols, and who got the you know, representation, the Electoral College in there, so that they could make sure that they had their interests defended. It's tragic, but here it is. So now we are looking at dangers, to our healthcare system. As a result of the Republicans, we're looking at dangers to the climate. In fact, the possibility, well, not the possibility, the reality that we are in the midst of the sixth great extinction. And we're talking, when we talk extinctions, we're talking, major problems that have, essentially destroyed the earth in the past. As climate change, nuclear war, the risk has gone up with Donald Trump. Tax breaks for the super wealthy, public education. Betsy DeVos committed to destroying our public education system and replacing it with a for-profit one so that billionaire families like hers can make money while kids go to school. Sure, yeah, hey, more money, more dividend checks coming while you're sitting on your butt around the pool, right? This is where we're at. And who's telling the truth about this? Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV needs your help. This is our fall or holiday season. I guess it would be holiday season, end of the year pledge drive. We need your help right now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Please call Free Speech TV. Please call Free Speech TV now and make a contribution. With a $30 donation, they'll send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. It's with a $30 donation. With a $60 donation, you get the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar. So, with all of the various talents and different pages and whatnot. With a $120 donation, you get a Van Jones book, Beyond the Messy Truth, and a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. It's with a $120 donation. With a $240 donation, you get Van Jones's book, Beyond the Messy Truth, plus Claudia Rankine's book, Citizen, plus the university bumper sticker. With a $360 gift, you get my book, Unequal Protection, plus Beyond the Messy Truth by Van Jones, plus Citizen by Claudia Rankine, and the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. That's all with a $340 gift. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch. And, or we can get a bunch of people coming to Portland and have a meet and greet pizza party, whatever works, but we'll work it out. Or occasionally I'll be back in D.C. In fact, I'll be in D.C. all next week, so, maybe we could meet there. So those are the premiums. You'll notice, by the way, $120, $240, $360, $30 and $60. All of these numbers are divisible by 12. And the reason why, with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month for a year. You can't, a $30 donation, I don't think you can put $2.50 on a credit card, or maybe you can, but it's probably not worth the effort. But with a the expense, because the credit card companies charge free speech every time they run something, and it's a very small amount, but on a $2.50 charge, it adds up. But anyway, so with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month that gets charged to your credit card for a year. With a $120 donation, it's $10 a month. With a $240 donation, it's $20 a month. And with a $360 donation, that's $30 a month, all charged every month. So you can make a $360 contribution, get those gifts, but it only costs, $30 a month. It's less than going out for dinner. So, well, I guess it depends on where you go, but you understand the point. In D.C., it's a lot less than going out to dinner. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV is doing really important work. Fewer than 2% of Free Speech TV viewers ever call and make a donation. So Free Speech TV right now is being supported by Free Speech TV's 2%. Please, if you're part of the 98% and you've never made a contribution to Free Speech TV, consider joining now. Consider making a contribution now. It means a lot to Free Speech TV. It means a lot to me and to our program. It keeps us going. It keeps Free Speech TV going. And of all the times in the political history of the United States, I can't think of any time that has been more critical, more crucial, more important, more vital in my lifetime than right now. I mean, yeah, there have been some real high points, but having a madman in the White House, having absolute, total, rampant corruption where the Republican Party has been completely bought out by a half a dozen or a couple of dozen billionaires, this is a crisis. This is an absolute, flat-out, screaming crisis. Please call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I wanted to get into, we were talking about Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy actually was in favor of raising taxes on rich people by closing loopholes. And in exchange for closing the loopholes, he would lower the top tax rate. That's the sales pitch the Republicans are using right now, but they're lying through their teeth about what they're actually doing. Similarly, Republicans are lying through their teeth about what they're doing militarily all around the world. They say they're all about peace, and yet, what do we get? War after war after. Donald Trump decided, oh, we're going to stay in Afghanistan, we're going to ramp it up. Oh, we're going to stay in Iraq, we're going to ramp it up. We were told a little while ago we had maybe 100 troops in Syria. It turns out it's over 1,000. We're helping the Saudis bomb the crap out of Yemen as 600,000 people have a cholera epidemic and over 10 million are on the brink of famine, of starvation. When it comes to war or peace, it seems that you really can't trust the Republicans. They will say whatever they have to say, but really at the end of the day, they're there for the military-industrial complex. They're there for the war machine. That was my dad's take, on the Democratic Party when I was growing up. When I was a kid, my dad, the lifelong Republican who, at 17, went off and joined the Army to fight in World War II, and then the war ended while he was in basic training and ended up in Japan in the occupation troops. My grandfather had been a socialist, and he thought FDR didn't go far enough. My dad was a conservative, and he thought FDR was like the devil incarnate. Well, in some ways. Actually, he liked a lot of what FDR did. He certainly liked the unionization thing, working in a tool and die shop for 40 years. But Dad always referred to FDR and to the World War I and World War II and the Vietnam War as those damn Democrat wars. So it used to be that the Democrats were the party of war, right? The Democrat, Woodrow Wilson fought World War I, FDR fought World War II, LBJ amplified Vietnam. Not a noble thing. And Jack Kennedy spoke of this in 1963 at Michigan State University. I believe this was June of 1963. In fact, I believe it's the 10th of June, 1963. And here he is. Here's what he had to say.
I have therefore chosen this time and place to discuss a topic on which ignorance too often abounds and the truth too rarely perceived, and that is the most important topic on earth, peace.
And why is it we don't talk about peace?
What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of a peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana, enforced on the world by American weapons of war.
No, that's Trump's vision.
Not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time,
but peace for all
peace
time.
In all time.
And then he expands.
I speak of peace, therefore, as the necessary, rational end of rational men. I realize the pursuit of peace is not as dramatic as the pursuit of war, and frequently the words of the pursuers fall on deaf ears, but we have no more urgent task.
And we still have no more urgent task.
No government or social system is so evil that its people must be considered as lacking in virtue.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Our military forces are committed to peace and disciplined in self-restraint. Our diplomats are instructed to avoid unnecessary irritants and purely rhetorical hostility.
Whereas that's all that the Trump administration seems to be engaging in, purely rhetorical hostility. See Russia, see North Korea, see, I mean, you know, fill in the blank, right?
For we can seek a relaxation of tensions without relaxing our guard. And for our part, we do not need to use threats to prove we are resolute.
Yes, speak softly and carry a big stick, right?
Meanwhile, we seek to strengthen the United Nations, to help solve its financial problems, to make it a more effective instrument for peace, to develop it into a genuine world security system, a system capable of resolving disputes on the basis of law, of ensuring the security of the large and the small, and of creating conditions under which arms can finally be abolished.
I think you just figured out why the Republicans are so opposed to Jack Kennedy and everything. You know, oh my God, he wants to expand the United Nations? We can't have that. They just work for world peace. Come on, that's why they were created. He continues.
The United States, as the world knows, will never start a war. We do not want a war. We do not now expect a war. This generation of Americans has already had enough, more than enough, of war and hate and oppression.
I think he was absolutely right there. And you keep in mind, this was June of 1963. Within 2-3 years, we were digging into Vietnam in a big way. Within 5 years, we were huge at Vietnam. And I don't think Lyndon Johnson shared Jack Kennedy's "we don't want a war" perspective, tragically.
We shall be prepared if others wish it. We shall be alert to try to stop it. But we shall also do our part to build a world of peace where the weak are safe and the strong are just. We are not helpless before that task or hopeless of its success. Confident and unafraid, we must labor on, not towards a strategy of annihilation, but towards a strategy of peace.
Strategy of peace. That's amazing, you know. And yes, it is strategic, right? Being an advocate for peace. This is like a really good and healthy thing. In fact, there's a bunch of good and healthy things to stand for that Jack Kennedy stood for, that we have completely lost sight of, or at least our media has lost sight of, and sometimes I think even in some ways some Democrats have lost sight of, and we need to constantly remind ourselves of these things. Jack Kennedy, when he was running for president, this is in 1960, running for president, in New York they have fusion voting, which means you can be a member of a political party that is not the Democratic Party, and yet when you vote, you can have a Democrat on your ticket. So multiple parties can have the same candidate in New York State. This is called fusion voting. And the Liberal Party in New York State in 1960 had Jack Kennedy on its ballot, as did the Democratic Party. So you could vote Liberal or you could vote Democratic. And Jack Kennedy went to speak to the Liberal Party, and here's what he had to say.
What do our opponents mean when they apply to us the label liberal? If by liberal they mean, as they want people to believe, someone who is soft in his policies abroad, who is against local government, and who is unconcerned with the taxpayer's dollar, then the record of this party and its members demonstrate that we are not that kind of liberal. But if by a liberal they mean someone who looks ahead and not behind, someone who welcomes new ideas without rigid reactions, someone who cares about the welfare of the people, their health, their housing, their schools, their jobs, their civil rights and their civil liberties, someone who believes that we can break through the stalemate and suspicions that grip us in our policies abroad. If that is what they mean by a liberal, then I'm proud to say that I'm a liberal.
There you go. I'm proud to say that I am a liberal. John F. Kennedy, at that time Senator John F. Kennedy, just laying it out. Just laying it out. And he also, I mean, John Kennedy also understood the thing that Republicans would rather you didn't know about, which is that voting
is not something that we need to cut back, not something we need to stop, not something we need to block, but something that if we want to have a vibrant democracy, we need to encourage.
These tense and anxious
Here he is.
In these tense and anxious weeks, I know that every American citizen wants to know what he can do for his country. Not everyone can serve in our armed forces or serve our government, but there is one thing you can do. There is one way you can indicate your devotion to freedom. There is one way in which we can show how strongly we believe in our democracy. Tuesday is Election Day. I hope every American will turn out and vote. Every American, every member of his family. And show the world how strongly we believe in freedom, how strongly we believe in our country, how strongly we believe in democracy.
There you go. How strongly we believe in democracy. This was just this was a given, right? In 1962, when he said that, it was a given that you vote because you care about your country. Now it's a given that if you vote, you're immediately a suspect. The Republicans want to check you 16 ways to Sunday. It's like, you know, the voting booth is not that different from an airport now. Gee, you got to show ID, you got to go through security, you got to, well, I don't know about the security. I didn't see that here in D.C. or there in D.C. when last time I voted. But, you know, this is the Republic. You know, they are completely ahistoric. It is so important, I believe, that we not start thinking that today's situation is normal, that Donald Trump is normal, or that today's Republican Party, wholly owned by petro-billionaires, is a normal thing. None of it is normal. This is a very abnormal situation.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And the only solution is for all of us to get aggressively, politically active and organized. And welcome back. Bill in Wolf Point, Montana. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching Free Speech.
Yeah, good morning. I'm a first-time caller.
Thank you, Bill.
I guess I'm really concerned about the last 2 weeks of Meet the Press, as well as MSNBC and CNN, that the negative connotations they have towards tribalism, by all the commentators. Tribalism to many of us, I'm a member of the Snoqualmie Sioux Nation in Montana, and with the 500 and some tribes we have in this nation, tribalism has enabled us to survive as a people, maintaining our land and our air and our culture, our language, and our survival. And as you're talking about voting, we participate fully for our very survival. And I would hope more scholars would. I was a member of the tribal council as well as sort of a political organizer in terms of voter registration and former state legislator. And I just wish that would be more Indian people that would participate in your program, because you do a good service, you know. And but we cannot survive as a people when we have negative connotations about tribalism.
Yeah. Yeah, two issues there, Bill. Number one, I would, if you have any access to or connections with people in various tribes who might be in a position to do outreach, the media, by and large, and I'll confess, this program's not that different, tends to be more reactive than proactive. I mean, there are times when I go through and I dig stuff out, and like the Kennedy clips on peace, right there. You know, I planned this. I planned that out last Friday after Thanksgiving. I was trying to organize today's show, and I thought, this is really important stuff. We need to revisit it. But by and large, though, most radio and television shows respond to things like press releases. So if people in tribal government who are doing things that they would like the rest of the world to know about or consider consequential, or just to push back on the use of the word tribalism, if they were to issue a press release and send it out to all the media outlets, that would be a good thing. We would get it, and we would probably book those people. We almost never hear from Native American groups. I'm constantly hearing from everybody else. So, Bill, if you could pass that along, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, one more point.
Well, I have one other question for you, if I may, real quickly.
Standing Rock was great for us in terms of expressing our tribalism.
Yes.
Standing Rock.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What word, if you're objecting to the word tribalism as a way of, it's really shorthand for, my side, right or wrong, which is the position that the Republicans are taking with things like Roy Moore. What alternative word should we use?
I don't know. I think it may be just the word tribalism can be used so positive for us as a people.
Right. But it's
let's survive as tribes have been able to survive all these years, 500 years.
Yeah.
Because we're tribes.
No, I completely agree with you. In fact, I wrote a book that is largely about this, Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. There's 2 chapters in it devoted to tribalism and how useful it's been for Native people and how how much we have to learn from Native people, Western society, and the rest of the developed world, for that matter, or developing world. But it's this word tribalism is not being used to describe you and your situation. It's being used to describe this, me, my people, my way, first and foremost mentality. And
yep.
I don't know a better word. Which is a problem. I agree with you, Bill.
Yep.
If you think of one, call up and let Arthur know, would you, Bill?
Well, I appreciate our conversation.
Okay, I appreciate it too. Good talking with you, Bill. Thank you so much for the call. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Margie in Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. Hey, Margie, what's on your mind today?
I have a question for you, and I don't know if you have the answer or would be able to find the answer out. I have been reading on the internet that with this new tax bill, individuals who own businesses but just do the taxes on their personal taxes would no longer be able to deduct business deductions. I'm a truck driver. If I can't deduct my fuel, I will pay more in taxes than what I clear a year.
Yeah. There was wow. Last week, a truck driver called in and shared a specific piece of the tax code that was a specific deduction that truck owner-operators get. What's making me crazy, Margie, is that I don't remember the exact details of which deduction it was. Do you?
I'm guessing it's the daily per diem.
Yeah. Okay. And is that where your gas taxes get buried?
No, daily per diem is where we can take a daily amount for every day that we are on the road to cover expenses on the road.
Right,
for
food
instance,
and lodging.
Food, laundry, showers, and everything.
Right.
That deduction varies every year. It's usually around, somewhere up to $50 a day, and we can take a portion of that off on our taxes.
And the Republican tax bill does away with that? Because that's what my recollection is. That's what the caller was talking about. That's amazing.
But that's only one deduction. Think about, I spend almost $200,000 on fuel a year.
Right.
If I can't deduct that, commerce in this country will end, because every single owner-operator and small business truck company, and 70% of freight in the U.S. is hauled by small companies.
Right.
All of them will immediately stop driving.
Margie, do you have any specific evidence that either the House or Senate Republican tax bills do away with your ability to deduct gas taxes? I mean, that's a federal...
That's what I'm trying to find out. I've been reading things from actual tax preparers that are putting this out on the internet, saying that business taxes or business deductions will no longer be deductible. Huh. And they were using examples like, if you have a painter who makes $30,000 a year but has $5,000 in expenses, they will pay taxes on the whole $30,000.
Right.
Well, for a truck driver who makes $250,000 a year but has $200,000 in deductions for truck maintenance, fuel, fees,
Sure.
everything.
Sure. The only thing I can think of, Margie, is that, and I started to allude to this earlier, that the gas tax is both a federal and a state tax. I think the federal tax is set at 17 cents a gallon, and state taxes range from 10 or 15 cents a gallon in some states to over 45 cents a gallon in other states. And if they're going to eliminate the deductibility of state and local taxes, it would seem that that state portion of the gas tax would be considered a state tax that would no longer be deductible. But I am not a tax expert, and I am not certainly an expert on the Republican tax bill. So,
and that's actually IFTA. State for fuel taxes, that falls under IFTA. That's a completely separate kind of weird carve-out, because if I buy fuel in, say, the state of Wisconsin, and I travel to Texas, I have to make a report to IFTA, and that money gets divided through all of the states that I drove through.
What's IFTA?
International Fuel Tax Association. It's Canada and the U.S. all do this.
So you report your payments to them. What benefit do you get from that? What does that do for you as a truck driver?
Nothing. It's mandatory.
So they're just gathering information?
Yes, I have to submit the information of where I made all of my fuel stops, what routes I took, how many miles I drove in each state. I submit that. Well, actually, my carrier does, because I'm kind of addition, subtraction stupid, but they submit that to IFTA, and it gets distributed to the states. Now, if I buy a fuel in a high-tax state and then drive through a bunch of low-tax states, I get money back. If I buy fuel in a low-tax state and drive through a bunch of high-tax states, I have to pay in the difference quarterly.
So IFTA is your tax collector, essentially, for fuel taxes?
For fuel taxes, yes. For
I get it. I get it. I was wondering, what's the purpose for the existence of this organization? So then the question becomes, are those fuel taxes, will they still be deductible? Apparently.
Not just the fuel taxes, but will the fuel itself be deductible?
Oh, yeah. It's a legitimate business expense. You would think it would be. Again, Margie, I'm sorry I don't know the answer to that, but one of the things I've learned from doing this show for 14, 15 years is that there's a lot of people listening who are smarter than I am on any one individual topic. And in all probability, somebody will call sometime today and share with us their actual knowledge of this. And meanwhile, I'll see what I can find out. Margie, I got to move along, but thank you for the call and raising a serious, legitimate concern, and one that we need to learn more about. This is one of the reasons, Margie, why it's so crazy that these tax bills are being submitted without the normal, what John McCain refers to as normal order, I think, or ordinary order, or regular procedure, or whatever it's called. In other words, there's no hearings, there's no witnesses, there's no experts, there's no analysis. Now the CBO's coming out kind of after the fact and saying, this is going to be a screaming disaster for anybody making under $50,000 or $75,000 a year, particularly after a decade from now when all the individual tax cuts go away, but the corporate and the billionaire tax cuts, the estate tax cut, the alternative minimum tax cut, they all stay. So, Margie, we got to find out. Thank you very much for the call, and thanks for helping haul our stuff all over the country. I appreciate it. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
Americans have taken a lot of hits in the last year since Donald Trump was selected president by a small number of people in a few electoral states, even though the vast majority of Americans, well, 3 million to be exact, preferred Hillary Clinton, preferred a Democrat over Donald Trump. But, you know, hey, you got to respect the slave owners of the South who got, you know, the Second Amendment written in there to protect their slave patrols, and who got the representation, the electoral college in there, so that they could make sure that they had their interests defended. It's tragic, but here it is. So now we are looking at dangers, you know, to our healthcare system. As a result of the Republicans, we're looking at dangers to the climate. In fact, the possibility, well, not the possibility, the reality that we are in the midst of the sixth great extinction. And we're talking, when we talk extinctions, we're talking, you know, major problems that have, you know, essentially destroyed the earth in the past. As climate change, nuclear war, the risk has gone up with Donald Trump, tax breaks for the super wealthy, public education. Betsy DeVos committed to destroying our public education system and replacing it with a for-profit one so that billionaire families like hers can make money while kids go to school. Sure, yeah, hey, more money, more dividend checks coming while you're sitting on your butt around the pool, right? This is where we're at. And who's telling the truth about this? Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV needs your help. This is our fall or holiday season. I guess it would be holiday season, end of the year pledge drive. We need your help right now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Please call Free Speech TV. Please call Free Speech TV now and make a contribution. With a $30 donation, they'll send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. So the $30 donation. With a $60 donation, you get the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar. So, you know, with all of the various talents and different pages and whatnot. With a $120 donation, you get Van Jones' book, Beyond the Messy Truth, and a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. It's with a $120 donation. With a $240 donation, you get Van Jones's book, Beyond the Messy Truth, plus Claudia Rankine's book, Citizen, plus the university bumper sticker. With a $360 gift, you get my book, Unequal Protection, plus Beyond the Messy Truth by Van Jones, plus Citizen by Claudia Rankine, and the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. That's all with a $340 gift. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch. And, you know, or we can get a bunch of people coming to Portland and have a meet and greet pizza party, whatever works, but we'll work it out. Or occasionally I'll be back in D.C. In fact, I'll be in D.C. all next week. So, you know, maybe we could meet there. So those are the premiums. You'll notice, by the way, $120, $240, $360, $30, and $60. All of these numbers are divisible by 12. And the reason why, with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month for a year. You can't, you know, a $30 donation, I don't think you can put $2.50 on a credit card, or maybe you can, but it's probably not worth the effort. But with a 60, I mean, the expense, because the credit card companies charge free speech every time they run something, and it's a very small amount, but on a $2.50 charge, it adds up. But anyway, So with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month that gets charged to your credit card for a year. With a $120 donation, it's $10 a month. With a $240 donation, it's $20 a month. And with a $360 donation, that's $30 a month, all charged every month. So you can make a $360 contribution, get those gifts, but it only costs $30 a month. It's less than going out for dinner. So, well, I guess it depends on where you go, but you understand the point. In D.C., it's a lot less than going out to dinner. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV is doing really important work. Fewer than 2% of Free Speech TV viewers ever call and make a donation. So Free Speech TV right now is being supported by Free Speech TV's 2%. Please, if you're part of the 98% and you've never made a contribution to Free Speech TV, consider joining now. Consider making a contribution now. It means a lot to Free Speech TV. It means a lot to me and to our program. It keeps us going. It keeps Free Speech TV going. And of all the times in the political history of the United States, I can't think of any time that has been more critical, more crucial, more important, more vital in my lifetime than right now. I mean, yeah, there have been some real high points, but having a madman in the White House, having absolute, total, rampant corruption where the Republican Party has been completely bought out by a half a dozen or a couple of dozen billionaires, this is a crisis. This is an absolute, flat-out, screaming crisis. Please call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Thank you. This changes.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and very pleased to have on the line with us the great Harvey Wasserman. Harvey is...
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Harvey. Harvey's website, solartopia.org. You can tweet him at Solartopia, Solartopia. And Harvey, welcome back to the program. It's been a while.
Well, it's great to be with you, Tom, and congratulations on your move to the West Coast.
Thank you. Oh, we're loving it out here. All our kids live here. My mother-in-law, brother-in-law. It's like I'm back with family, and which is real important to us. But let's talk about Puerto Rico. You have been doing some remarkable reporting over at TruthDig and other places on what's going on in Puerto Rico. Is it? I remember when Puerto Rico first happened, people were tweeting, okay, is this going to be is Naomi Klein's book going to be played out here? Is this going to be a great example of disaster capitalism? Seems like it's looking that way.
It's the quintessential. I mean, what's happened here is that the government, the Trump administration, has decided to not help these people, even though they're U.S. citizens. Of course, they do happen to be of color, mostly, and speak Spanish. But Puerto Rico has been a U.S. colony since 1898, and these people are American citizens. And Maria swept through there. Trump comes up and destroyed the place. I mean, really destroyed the place. This is the devastation in Puerto Rico is just almost unbelievable. Also in the Virgin Islands, which people seem to skip over, but they are also U.S. citizens. And the administration decided not to help these people, basically. I mean, there's a hospital ship down there. There's some FEMA people. There was a very corrupt contract given to rebuild the energy grid to a tiny two-person company in Whitefish, Montana, which happens to be the hometown of Ryan Zink, the Interior Secretary.
Yeah, and his son apparently worked there, too.
His son actually worked for the company. Yeah. The $300 million contract, they were paying 4 linemen to fix the lines on the power lines. They're flying people in at $1,000 a head, setting out $350 or thereabouts an hour, of which the workers actually only got a fraction. And meanwhile, the grid is at least still half down. You know, this is 2 months, Tom. So this isn't like last week.
This would not be tolerated in the white suburbs of Houston. And in fact, it was not tolerated in the white suburbs of Houston. But in Puerto Rico, where, as you point out, Harvey, people speak Spanish and the majority of the population are what could be defined as people of color, Hispanic or black or both, you know, Trump seems to be getting away with this.
Yes, people are actually starving. They're drinking contaminated water from Superfund sites. The FEMA guys walk around, they hand out bottles, you know, small bottles of water, and they give people a form to fill out or an internet, you know, a number to call. There's no phone service in over half the island. There's no internet, for God's sakes, virtually at all. The hospitals, there are more than 50 hospitals. A fraction of them are operating. The one thing good that happened was Elon Musk sent in solar panels, and they're running the children's hospital in San Juan on solar panels. And we have called for the grid to be rebuilt along solar lines. We want microgrids, solar panels, and wind farms. And in fact, there was one wind farm on the south side of the island that went right through the hurricane, as did, by the way, most of the windmills in Texas. So this is another proof of the need to get to Solartopia. And Congressman Ted Lieu of Southern California has sent a letter to FEMA asking them to use whatever money they're devoting to rebuilding the grid to do it in a decentralized solar way. We want to see Puerto Rico totally solarized, which is more than possible.
And it's actually, you know, as of 2 weeks ago, and I think it was Joe Robb did a great piece on this over at Think Progress. As of a couple of weeks ago, solar and wind are both now officially cheaper than any fossil fuel or nuclear power, you know, if you strip out all the subsidies from all of them.
Yes, exactly. And Germany now is getting more energy from wind and solar than from nuclear and fossil fuels.
Yeah,
and that's only the fourth largest economy in the world.
Right.
Now, but one thing we're looking at Puerto Rico, I mean, it's been so egregious, Tom, that you have to start thinking: are they deliberately cleansing the island of local people? At least 150,000 people have left Puerto Rico. They've gone to Florida mostly, but also elsewhere. Yeah. And the question is, will Trump's vulture capitalists sweep in and, you know, soon buy up the land for pennies on the dollar and turn it into Cuba before the revolution? You know, big hotels, I'm sure some with Trump's names on them, gambling and prostitution.
Batista all over again.
It was.
Yeah. Amazing. Harvey, we've got about 3 minutes left here, and I wanted to get into another topic that you are noted internationally as an expert on, and that is our privatized, rigged voting system being hacked. And there is some concern among some people that the Alabama Senate election could be stolen. Tell me about this.
Well, they've already disenfranchised many, many, many thousands of black people, as has been done all over the country. Trump has set up a federal commission with Chris Kobach of the Secretary of State of Kansas, KKK there, to specifically for the disenfranchisement of people of color, and we know that's going on in Alabama. We're fighting now. We're trying to get the Democratic Party, which is brain dead, as you know, to pay attention to this and to see that we get a decent vote count. We're asking that Doug Jones not concede if he loses before there's a recount. There are electronic voting machines in there in Alabama which could be monitored. They do produce a valid image, but nobody seems to want to, which we could actually recount properly, but nobody seems to want to take this seriously. I think there's a very, very good, or you could say bad chance that this election will be stolen, which would be, you know, a horrifying outcome, given the nature of Roy Moore.
What are the principal techniques that the Republican Party is using? I mean, we saw this in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Indiana in the last election, where hundreds of thousands of people in Minnesota, mostly in Milwaukee, a largely black town, in Michigan, mostly Detroit, largely black town, in Flint, in Indianapolis, in Ohio, mostly minority communities, just were, you know, literally hundreds of thousands, or correct me if I'm wrong, Harvey, you're the expert on this.
No, you're 100% right. It's strip and flip, Tom.
Yeah.
What happens is that they strip the voter rolls. They remove people, legitimately registered citizens, from the voter rolls. The people show up to vote, often decades in the same polling place in the same home, and they're given provisional ballots because of the so-called irregularities, and the provisional ballots go straight in the trash. And that is how Donald Trump became president. In Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, and North Carolina, the 5 states where Hillary Clinton won the exit polls, and but somehow lost in the Electoral College, and did not say a word, by the way. And so then we think that this technique is going to be employed. We're pretty sure it's going to be employed in Alabama. The question is, will they strip out enough voters of color, and will they flip enough electronic votes? And
why do you think it is that the Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party in general are perfectly willing to blame the Russians, but not to blame the Republicans for throwing hundreds of thousands of people off the voting rolls that would have made the difference in those states? Harvey, we've got about 20 seconds left.
The problem is they did the same thing to Bernie Sanders. And so the Democrats did to Bernie Sanders what Trump then did to Hillary Clinton.
You're talking about in California?
Yes.
And in Brooklyn?
New York, in Brooklyn. And especially, but other places as well. And I read every word of Hillary Clinton's excruciating book, and she never said a word about this. She attacks Joe Stein, but fails to point out that Joe Stein actually won a recount in Michigan, but they wouldn't do it because the Clinton campaign wouldn't sign on. And so the Democratic Party is really at fault here. We're trying to awake somebody in Alabama to this possibility. And Tom, I hope to God we do it, because this is a major election that can be very easily stolen.
Amen. Harvey Wasserman, hang on just a second. I'll give you all this information. Hang on just a second.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Solartopia, SOLARTOPIA.org. You can tweet him at Solartopia. Thank you, Harvey.
Hey, Tom, thank you, and congratulations on your move.
Thanks. And welcome back. Oh, my goodness. Let's see here. Heidi in Bellevue, Washington. Hey, Heidi, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, Heidi.
Yeah. Well, I was calling about Prince Harry's engagement to Meghan Markle this morning. And I thought, what a wonderful, she's biracial and American. And I thought, what a wonderful stick in the eye to all those white Southern racists who denied who denied President Obama basically his presidency. And then I was also wondering what our current president is going to do to embarrass our entire country at this wedding. But also, the thing is, Tom, I called you last week. I called about the Indian reservation. You got one thing wrong. This was a native man, a member of the tribe, who was raping the girls.
Oh, my.
So, yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear that. There's no group that is 100% noble. Our webmaster, Nigel Peacock, who is British and is an old and dear friend, Nigel this morning sent me an email kind of summarizing what's going on over there with regard to Prince Harry and his soon-to-be wife. He said, Harry is the youngest son of the Prince and Princess of Wales, Charles and Diana. His nickname is Harry, but his real name is Henry. He's 5th in line to the throne. Meghan will not become a princess, as she has no royal descent connection. She's considered a commoner, but the Queen can give them the gift of a title, and in all probability, they will become the Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
Well, I wonder if Meghan's ever been denied the right to vote, or if her black mother has ever been denied the right to vote in this country.
Yeah.
So maybe this is an opportunity also to bring these things forward into like the more mainstream public. That's interesting. I mean, I love weddings. Weddings are wonderful.
Yeah.
But also, just the mainstream public. What has this woman had to face? What has her black mother had to face as an American?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating, Heidi. And Nigel also pointed out she's Roman Catholic, and the rules were changed in 2015. Prior to 2015, she would not have been allowed to marry into the royal family. And Donald Trump is unlikely to be invited as wedding guest. So Nigel sent me all that information. So then I sent him back a note saying, Nigel, this is great. Thank you for this. Very thoughtful of you to put it together for me. Most interesting is that you didn't mention that Meghan is a mixed-race child. Her mom, as I recall, is black. How are the Brits handling that? And will this increase or diffuse racial tensions in the UK? And Nigel replied to me saying, I was going to miss that, missed it out. I was going to mention that, missed it out. I believe she's of African-American heritage. The mixed-race marriage will be the first time in modern royal history. It's not considered an issue at all here, and in many ways is being welcomed by people in the media today. Things have changed in the past 40 years, Nigel writes, here in the UK, to the point that it has almost not been noticed that Meghan is of mixed race. It is barely mentioned in passing. There will be no racial tensions in the UK over her or the marriage. The UK is far more integrated than the United States when it comes to color, although we're nowhere near perfect. Her mother, Doris Radlin, divorced husband Thomas when Meghan was 6 years old. So that's everything I know, and it's fascinating stuff. Heidi, thank you for the call and for raising the issue. It is fascinating. And thank you for watching Free Speech TV. We'll be right back.
I'm Nina Turner, and you're watching Free Speech TV.
This year's election results have generated fear, sadness, and despair.
In the days and months ahead,
our democracy may face a crisis of historic proportions.
But there is good news.
There is good news.
There is good news. Thousands of people are stepping forward in solidarity, resistance,
and resolve.
We join them.
We join them.
We join them
in standing with the most vulnerable communities among us.
Those most likely to be targeted by new restrictions and policies.
We will tell their stories here.
Here
on Free Speech TV.
We will lift their voices here.
Here on Free Speech TV.
In the difficult times ahead, know that we will be with you
24 hours a day.
Every day.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
There are millions of us.
Raising our voices and hearts together as one.
We've got your back.
We got your back.
Free Speech TV's got your back.
The revolution is in progress.
Back. Remarkable stuff going on in the world today. We were just talking about how Prince Harry, his actual name is Henry, is going to marry Meghan. Oh, where did Meghan's last name go? Marcus. Markle. Markle, that's right. Meghan Markle, who is whose mother is black, and our webmaster Nigel Peacock, who lives in the UK, he sent me a whole long email about all the details of Meghan and Prince Harry. His name is Henry. He's fifth in line to the throne. She won't be a princess because she doesn't have royal blood, but the Queen will probably gift them the title of Duke and Duchess of Sussex. The engagement ring features 2 diamonds which belong to his late mother. At the center of the ring is a diamond from Botswana, where the couple have both spent time together. And then I sent up a note back to Nigel saying, you didn't mention that she's mixed-race child. And he said, I believe she's of African-American heritage. The mixed-race marriage will be the first in modern royal history. It's not considered an issue at all here, and in many ways is being welcomed by people and the media today. And he talks about how the UK has been quite efficient, quite effective at racial integration, which is fascinating. Okay, we might have found a clue to the longevity of Mitch McConnell, politically speaking. This from PBS, the NewsHour, and tip of the hat to the person in the chat room who passed this along. Turtles have lungs and breathe air. So how is it that they can sink to the bottom of a pond in the winter? The whole top of the pond freezes over. There's no possibility of oxygen going into the water, and there's no possibility of the turtle coming above the ice to take a breath. But he's got lungs. How does he breathe? Well, it turns out that turtles can take oxygen out of pond water. You know, fish do it by blowing water over their gills, by, swimming, and it goes through their gills. Turtles do it with their butts. Their butts are heavily vascularized, lots and lots of blood vessels. And so they just kind of wave their butt around in the water while they're hibernating, and it attracts oxygen. And in other words, they breathe through their butts. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good Mitch McConnell joke or not. It's probably a bad one. Okay, this summer, the Bank of America and Merrill Lynch surveyed 300 executives. What are you going to do with your tax holiday gains that the Republicans want to give you? They want to give you hundreds of billions of dollars. What are you going to do with that? Number one, pay down debt. Number two, buy back stock, which will jack up the pay or the money in the bank accounts of all the banksters. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. John in Minneapolis. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I just wanted to, mention that I had heard that we've spent since 9/11 over $8 trillion when you consider how much interest we're also paying, the total bill for all of these wars, and how different, when you had John Kennedy's speech, the optimism of the post-war era throughout the whole world, and the formation of the United Nations, and how we were going to end war and empire and solve, these problems, and look toward technology in the future, et cetera, and how, things have changed. This country has become an empire, and neocons have the attitude that they don't have to listen to history, they make history, so they can discount the entire 50 years after FDR as meaning nothing to anyone, and they set the tone that we now have, and as a result, trillions of dollars have gone into the pocket of contractors and people outside of Washington, D.C., and this money doesn't really do anything for the rest of us. In fact, it comes out of the pockets of mostly blue states, and it's relocated in places outside of Washington, D.C., in places like Alabama, New Mexico, et cetera, where they have, all of this, war infrastructure. And it's a shame. I mean, this is just a disaster. And they want to take even more money from us through the tax bill. Over $500 billion out of Medicare. And then, of course, we have, children who are sick and dependent often, and other people who are disabled. We are going to take, I think, over $1 trillion from them through this tax bill. Yep. So this is what we have now. And I think you mentioned it last week. I think it's a fascist government that we definitely all have to be involved in changing, because if they continue, they're going to have even control over what we're saying and doing right here, and over free speech TV, and the ability of people to counter this whole movement for, the 1%, I guess.
Yeah, wait until these guys lock down the internet. Well said. And the cost of wars, John, that you referenced at the beginning of your riff is, I'm not sure that number, maybe the $8 trillion number does include it, but I'm not sure that it includes the next 60 years that we're going to be spending on disability payments and treatment for people who went to war. I mean, there's some huge expenses there. John, thank you for the call. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with more of your calls right after this. Americans have taken a lot of hits in the last year since Donald Trump was selected president by a small number of people in a few electoral states, even though the vast majority of Americans, well, 3 million to be exact, preferred Hillary Clinton, preferred a Democrat over Donald Trump. But, hey, you got to respect the slave owners of the South who got, the Second Amendment written in there to protect their slave patrols,
and who got the representation, the electoral college in there, so that they could make sure that they had their interests defended. It's tragic, but here it is. So now we are looking at dangers, to our healthcare system. As a result of the Republicans, we're looking at dangers to the climate. In fact, the possibility, well, not the possibility, the reality that we are in the midst of the sixth great extinction. And we're talking, when we talk extinctions, we're talking, major problems that have, essentially destroyed the earth in the past. As climate change, nuclear war, the risk has gone up with Donald Trump. Tax breaks for the super wealthy, public education. Betsy DeVos committed to destroying our public education system and replacing it with a for-profit one so that billionaire families like hers can make money while kids go to school. Sure, yeah, hey, more money, more dividend checks coming while you're sitting on your butt around the pool, right? This is where we're at. And who's telling the truth about this? Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV needs your help. This is our fall or holiday season. I guess it would be holiday season, end of the year pledge drive. We need your help right now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Please call Free Speech TV. Please call Free Speech TV now and make a contribution. With a $30 donation, they'll send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker through the $30 donation. With a $60 donation, you get the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar. So, with all of the various talents and different pages and whatnot. With a $120 donation, you get Van Jones' book, Beyond the Messy Truth, and a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. So with a $120 donation. With a $240 donation, you get Van Jones's book, Beyond the Messy Truth, plus Claudia Rankine's book, Citizen, plus the university bumper sticker. With a $360 gift, you get my book, Unequal Protection, plus Beyond the Messy Truth by Van Jones, plus Citizen by Claudia Rankine, and the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. That's all with a $340 gift. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch. And, or we can get a bunch of people coming to Portland and have a meet and greet pizza party, whatever works, but we'll work it out. Or occasionally I'll be back in D.C. In fact, I'll be in D.C. all next week. So, maybe we could meet there. So those are the premiums. You'll notice, by the way, $120, $240, $360, $30 and $60. All of these numbers are divisible by 12. And the reason why, with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month for a year. You can't, a $30 donation, I don't think you can put $2.50 on a credit card, or maybe you can, but it's probably not worth the effort. But with a 60, I mean the expense, because the credit card companies charge free speech every time they run something, and it's a very small amount, but on a $2.50 charge, it adds up. But anyway, so with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month that gets charged to your credit card for a year. With a $120 donation, it's $10 a month. With a $240 donation, it's $20 a month. And with a $360 donation, that's $30 a month, all charged every month. So you can make a $360 contribution, get those gifts, but it only costs, $30 a month. It's less than going out for dinner. So, well, I guess it depends on where you go, but you understand the point. In D.C., it's a lot less than going out to dinner. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV is doing really important work. Fewer than 2% of Free Speech TV viewers ever call and make a donation. So Free Speech TV right now is being supported by Free Speech TV's 2%. Please, if you're part of the 98% and you've never made a contribution to Free Speech TV, consider joining now. Consider making a contribution now. It means a lot to Free Speech TV. It means a lot to me and to our program. It keeps us going. It keeps Free Speech TV going. And of all the times in the political history of the United States, I can't think of any time that has been more critical, more crucial, more important, more vital in my lifetime than right now. I mean, yeah, there have been some real high points, but having a madman in the White House, having absolute, total, rampant corruption where the Republican Party has been completely bought out by a half a dozen or a couple of dozen billionaires. This is a crisis. This is an absolute, flat-out, screaming crisis. Please call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Fascinating stuff. I'm reading a Twitter thread by Brian Krasenstein, who I've been following for some time. His name does not immediately ring a bell. I'm not sure exactly why I've been following him, but anyhow, he says, I will discuss why Tom Arnold's claim that tapes exist of President Trump committing crimes is no hoax. He says, I want to thank Ed Krasen for his help on this as well. Since last December, Thom Arnold has claimed the tapes exist showing Donald Trump doing and saying things which America would not view very fondly. And then he goes through a list of 3 or 4 different tapes, outtakes from The Apprentice, how there's a non-disclosure agreement you have to sign if you work for The Apprentice, and you can be hit with a $5 million fine. And so there's all these people who, they really don't want to be hit with a $5 million fine, but they really do want to talk about what Donald Trump said. This whole thing is just fascinating. I'm going to just retweet this tweet, the beginning of this rant, just as an FYI. It's just fascinating, what's going on. Armin in Bradenton, Florida. Hey, Armin, what's on your mind today? Armin?
Yeah. Hey, Tom?
Yes, sir.
Hey, thanks for giving me the opportunity. I've been with you for about 16, 17, 18 years now. And
we've only been doing the show for 14 or 15. I think it'll be 15 years this March, so maybe 16.
From the very beginning, like IE and all that?
Yeah, I know. You've been here from the beginning, Armin, and we appreciate it. What's up?
Your caller that you had before, he did a very good, thorough job of articulating the scam that Trump and the Republicans are trying to pull on us with this tax bill. But I think maybe a more crude way, but would be better directed towards the last of the Trump supporters that aren't rich, would be to phrase it and frame it like this. Okay, those out there that are listening to you right now, whether they're left, right, center, whatever they are, all listeners, have them call you up and ask them, would you be okay with me borrowing money on your charge card against your will and giving it to the rich that don't need it and paying you back the money that I took from you against your consent and will with cuts in your health benefits and your retirement benefits? In other words, stealing from you and paying you back half of what I stole from your benefits. And that's exactly what I'm calling him. You know what I'm calling him now? Let's call him what he is. He's the King Khan.
Yeah.
Not King Kong. He's King Khan.
Right.
Because, Tom,
he's the
you
Don.
have to stop and think. King Khan. But you have to stop and think that anybody that runs a casino, when you can stack the deck against all the poor people that come in, the odds, and you still go broke, I think that is totally incompetent, in my opinion, as far as business goes. I mean, how could you lose when you can configure the odds?
Oh, he's a breathtakingly incompetent businessman. I mean, he's about to walk away from Trump Soho in New York City because they couldn't make it work. He's breathtakingly incompetent. He was bequeathed all this money by his father. He blew it over and over again. He declared bankruptcy 6 times. Donald Trump is... And then look at how he's being played by the Chinese right now. I mean, it's just amazing. And the Saudis, all you have to do is suck up to him, give him a huge parade, and he'll sign away the United States to you. It's breathtaking. Armin, you nailed it. You nailed it very, very well. Thank you for that. And appreciate the call. Victor in Grass Valley, California. Hey, Victor, what's on your mind today? No.
Hello.
Hey, Victor, you're on the air. What's up?
Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air, Victor. Okay, let's try Bill in St. Helens, Oregon. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Tommy actually just said it a second ago about he'd sell the country out if the price was right. But, you know, if we have a single appointee to an office of a position of power coming in dedicated to destroying that position and all that it represents and representing the interests of the American people, you might call it, you know, an exception, an aberration, but this administration is basically appointing everybody whose primary function in life is to undermine our government, undermine our Constitution, undermine our values, undermine the health and safety and welfare of this country and the world. This is institutionalized sedition. This is a coup d'etat from within, Tom. It really is. Yeah. They are overthrowing our government from within.
Bragging about it. I mean, Steve Bannon said we're going to destroy the institutional state.
Yeah, I'm not even a member of Twitter, but I just last posting I did on Facebook, I put hashtag Republican Party sedition, and I think we need to start using that word every time we mention this party because
here's the problem, Bill. The Republican Party has been saying since 1935 that they don't think that the government should be involved in Social Security. It should be handled by the big banks and Wall Street. The government has been, you know, the Republican Party since 1965, when Medicare was passed, has been saying that the government shouldn't be involved in health care. You know, Ronald Reagan recorded an album in which he said, you know, someday we'll look back on that time when men were free. You know, the Medicare is the first road to socialism. And, I mean, my dad had that record, right? At the AMA, sent it out all over the place. And so, you know, it's not like they're committing sedition, Bill. I mean, I agree with you. They're dismantling our government and replacing large parts of our government, at least the regulatory parts of it, with toadies from the industries being regulated. So you could argue that you know, the banking regulators, the FDA, the USDA, the people overseeing oil wells, the EPA, on and on and on, no longer are protecting you and me and average Americans. They're instead protecting the interests of corporations. But the Republicans have been saying that that's what they want to do since 1920.
How is not coming into office dedicated to undermining the office and undermining the government and undermining the protections that the Constitution is supposed to afford? How is that not, by definition, sedition?
Their argument is that the EPA is tyranny, the Interior Department is tyranny, Medicare is tyranny, Social Security is tyranny. Didn't you know? If you're taking benefits from the government, you are being seduced. You are being paid for your vote to vote for Democrats who support Social Security when you take that Social Security payment. This is how the Koch brothers, this is how the hard right in the Republican Party, this is how the Republicans view this. And so when they come into office and say, we're coming into office specifically to chop $1 trillion out of Medicaid and $500 billion out of Medicare, which is exactly what the Republican budget does. And they say it with a straight face because it's true. They actually believe that destroying the government of the United States is a good thing that will lead to more freedom. And it may lead to more freedom for people who own polluting industries or people who make their money investing money, you know, the billionaire class. But it doesn't lead to more freedom for anybody else. So anyway,
I just see them favoring corporations over people, and they're passing legislation. They're appointing people who primarily represents corporate America, who I personally believe has become the enemy of the people, because corporate America is saying we don't really give a damn about the success or failure of this government. We really don't give a damn whether or not that the average American can afford to eat or afford a house. They don't care. And these are the people that the Republicans are representing. They're representing the people that have no interest in the success of this country beyond how much they can profitize it. So I'll stick with my word, Tom. We'll agree to disagree.
No, I think you said it brilliantly, Bill. Thank you very much for the call. Clyde in Cambridge, Mass. Hey, Clyde, what's on your mind today?
Hey, the same thing actually, and you said it right. And it's not really the Republic. It's not really Donald Trump, because he can't write the laws for taxes. It's the Republican Congress. They're like stage 4 lung cancer. They try to destroy every part of you, everything that helps you live. And he's like a little cell that got away and ended up in the brain. and now he's immune to anything that you threaten. So he's going to destroy you.
Well, that's interesting,
And
Clyde.
all they expect you to do is just live now till you die, because they would have stripped you of everything and destroy you of everything.
Yeah, so you're essentially comparing Donald Trump to a metastasized cancer cell.
Yes, stage 4 lung cancer.
Yeah, and I think that's a great analogy. In fact, if anything, he is the metastasis, or he's the proof of it. Yeah, very well said. I got to run, Clyde. Thank you for the call. Very well said. Brent in Hill. I'm sorry, we just have a minute and a half. I want to get Brent's call in here. Brent, quick one.
So we had a caller. I'm a truck driver. I also have a Series 6 license, which allows me to give some advice to small businesses regarding finances and such. The question was, can we write off the fuel in this new bill? And I don't know the details, but I know that in the House, they said that as long as you were a corporation and it was a legitimate business expense. So all the owner ops out there need to
incorporate
an attorney and consider incorporation to make certain they have that right.
Right, but that's that's the upside. The downside is that creating a corporation is going to cost you $1,000. You're going to have a CPA, because as a corporation, if you screw up your bookkeeping, you're looking at criminal penalties. So that's going to be a couple $1,000s a year. I mean, it's for an owner operator. Probably most of them have an LLC to begin with, I would guess, but I don't know.
If not, they should consider seeking that as an alternative.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Brent. Brent, thanks for the call, and thanks for listening to SiriusXM. I appreciate it. As I said, we have the smartest listeners on earth. We will eventually figure out the answer to these questions. We'll be back with more of your calls. We're going to check in with Talk Media News, too, in just a minute. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Net neutrality protests exploding across the country. More on that as we continue through the program today. And welcome back. Charlotte in Somerville, South Carolina. Hey, Charlotte, what's on your mind? Thanks for watching Free Speech on DirecTV.
Hey, Tom. Listen, this came from a pro-choice site fundraising email I got, but apparently the Republicans have stuck some sort of fetal personhood provision in their tax bill.
Yes. I believe that's the case. I'm not sure if it's fetal personhood or if it's a heartbeat at 20 weeks, therefore no abortions, but go ahead.
They're fighting Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, well, very well said, Charlotte. And as far as I know, you're right. I've heard a couple of different variations of it. I'm not sure which apply to the House and which apply to the Senate. We don't have a single bill yet, and which makes it a little more problematic to talk about it in detail. But you're absolutely right as far as I know. Charlotte, thank you for the call, and thanks for pointing this out. Victor in Grass Valley, California. Hey, Victor, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom.
Hey,
I just wanted to point out one thing about the net neutrality. As soon as that is taken away, the First Amendment rights will take the free speech away, and then they'll take their guns. So the NRA should be aware of that.
Oh, that's an interesting frame for it. Yeah.
And also, I just want to bring it to your attention, I put a song out on YouTube called Nothing Trickles Down, Mr. Chump. And it's the Mad Protestor. So I think you guys should play it on your show there. It covers everything that this Dunsmore is trying to pull.
Yeah.
And I suggest everybody pull it up and get this dumbass to tweak on it.
Okay. Check it out. Very interesting.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Victor. Thanks for the call. Mark in San Francisco. Hey, Mark, what's on your mind today?
Well, Tom, it's this tax scam and the effects of it, and as far as what it's going to do to the economy, taking all this money, these trillions of dollars out of the economy, and after they cut our entitlements and they do cuts to the other program, that's more money taken out of the economy, and nobody's taken that into consideration. We're looking at a depression.
I think you're right. I think, Mark, if this tax bill passes, the housing industry will crash first.
Particularly if they do away with state and local deductions, which would include things like property taxes, you're going to see the housing market just disintegrate, among other things. There's
the banking's going to disintegrate too.
Yeah, absolutely, because investment's going to stop.
And Tom, I hate to say this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they allowed banks to seize accounts. That's how bad I think it's going to get.
That was written into the law a year before last, Mark. That the banks, they changed the way the banks have to account for your money, and it used to be that your money in a bank's checking account or savings account was considered a liability on the books of the bank. Now it's considered an asset. It is an asset which banks can lay claim to if they are in financial trouble. So the next bailout will not be coming from the government. It'll be coming from the people who are the depositors in the banks, as I recall. And there may be a caveat or two to that, but I remember when this was going on, and there was a lot of concern that this was what was up. So, Mark, thanks a lot for the call. Great to hear from you. And spot on. We're going to check in with Victoria Jones with Talk Media News in just a moment. Please stay right here. Welcome back. Let's check in with Victoria Jones with Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world today. Victoria's report is brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Loving What You Do, Ellen Ratner's new book. Victoria, welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yeah, lovely. What about you?
Same here. It was great. It's nice being where all my family lives. We had everybody over at our house. So great. It was super. So what's going on in the world today?
Well, you've been talking about taxes, so let's start with taxes. President Trump has been meeting with Republican members of the Senate Finance Committee at the White House, and that meeting has just ended, and those lawmakers are going to the stakeout area to talk to reporters about how that meeting went or to say how that meeting went. So we should know more about it shortly. The Republicans and the president are scrambling. They've got to make some changes to this Republican tax bill if they want to win over some holdout Republican senators and pass it by the end of the year. The president was tweeting this morning, and he wants a few changes and saying they can get even more in what he's saying are actual dollars and savings, and they might want to do that now that the Congressional Budget Office's analysis is out, showing it would hurt Americans earning less than $30,000, the Washington Post reports, and it would hurt them more than originally thought. It's because those earners would be getting less government aid for health care, since the bill would get rid of the individual mandate from Obamacare. Also, those earning under $40,000 are losing out with the tax bill. And health insurance premiums would rise, with 4 million Americans losing insurance by 2019, and that goes up to 13 million by 2027. Now, Senator Susan Collins of Maine is a holdout over this individual mandate issue, so we'll wait to see what they're going to do on that, or whether they are going to do anything on that, because they can afford to lose two Republicans.
Yeah, two things worth noting. Number one, the individual mandate was originally a Republican idea. This came out of the Heritage Foundation in the mid-1980s, or mid-1990s, excuse me. And well, I guess actually that's enough. This is amazing what these guys are planning on. Anyhow, back to you, Victoria.
The White House announced today that Trump is not going to be campaigning for Alabama Republican Senate candidate Roy Moore, who Trump has not endorsed him, but he's come close to it. So, but he's not going to be campaigning for him. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Democratic Senator Al Franken is back in Congress. He held a press conference outside his office this morning and apologized to his staff, the people of Minnesota, and, quote, everyone who has counted on him to be a champion of women for his past history of sexual misconduct. He said, "I'm sorry. I know there are no magic words I can say to regain your trust, and I know that's going to take time." He said he doesn't plan to step down, and he didn't answer questions on what bar should be set when asking for the resignation of elected officials accused of sexual assault.
Right. Remarkable.
Also today, interesting story from Reuters, TransCanada, which has the Keystone Pipeline. The existing Keystone Pipeline has leaked substantially more oil and more often in the United States than indicated in risk assessments the company provided to regulators before the project began operating in 2010, according to documents that Reuters has seen.
So the people at Standing Rock were right.
Well, it looks like it. The existing Keystone system from Alberta to the Texas coast has had 3 significant leaks since it began operating, including a 5,000 barrel spill this month in South Dakota and 2 others, each about 400 barrels. But before constructing, TransCanada said that they estimated a leak of more than 50 barrels to be not more than once every 7 to 11 years over the entire length of the pipeline. And for South Dakota alone, where the lines leaked twice, the estimate was for a spill no more than once every 41 years.
Wow. So this thing is already failing way beyond what they said it would. And yet Nebraska just decided to go ahead and let them run it through the new version of it through Nebraska.
That's right. And the spill analysis for Keystone crossing Montana, South Dakota, and Nebraska estimates 2.2 leaks per decade, with half of those at volumes of 3 barrels or less. Wow. Spills exceeding 1,000 barrels would occur at a rate of once per century. So we'll see.
So here's the easy solution. Just say to TransCanada, a foreign corporation that wants to profit by moving toxic and poisonous stuff all the way across the middle of the United States, just say to TransCanada, okay, fine. You say that we're only going to have, 5 barrels of leaked oil in a 20-year period. For every barrel that leaks over that five barrels over a 20-year period, you pay the U.S. government $1 billion.
Well, that's a thought.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
Members of South Dakota's Public Utilities Commission told Reuters last week that they could revoke their operating permit if an initial probe of last week's spill showed it violated the terms of the license.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else is going on in the world, Victoria?
Also, there are competing directors of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau today.
Right. So Mick Mulvaney.
We don't know how this one's going to end. You've got Mick Mulvaney, who is the director of the budget office at the White House. He showed up at 7:30 with donuts, and he's facing a challenge from Leandra English, who was named temporary head of the agency by outgoing director Richard Caudry last Friday. And English challenged Mulvaney's appointment in a lawsuit late last night. Both issued statements this morning indicating they were in charge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to a court, right?
Yes, it is going to court because she's challenged him in court. So we'll see. It's going to U.S.
Federal
District Court in D.C. first.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then if Mulvaney doesn't like the ruling, it'll go to the Supreme Court, presumably.
Yes.
Yeah. Victoria Jones with Talk Media News, brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Loving What You Do, Ellen Ratner's new book. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you very much.
Great speaking with you. We will be back. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com. Americans have taken a lot of hits in the last year since Donald Trump was selected president by a small number of people in a few electoral states, even though the vast majority of Americans, well, 3 million to be exact, preferred Hillary Clinton, preferred a Democrat over Donald Trump. But, you know, hey, you got to respect the slave owners of the South who got, you know, the Second Amendment written in there to protect their slave patrols, and who got the representation, the electoral college in there so that they could make sure that they had their interests defended. It's tragic, but here it is. So now we are looking at dangers, to our healthcare system. As a result of the Republicans, we're looking at dangers to the climate. In fact, the possibility, well, not the possibility, the reality that we are in the midst of the sixth great extinction. And we're talking, when we talk extinctions, we're talking, major problems that have, essentially destroyed the earth in the past. As climate change, nuclear war, the risk has gone up with Donald Trump. Tax breaks for the super wealthy, public education. Betsy DeVos committed to destroying our public education system and replacing it with a for-profit one so that billionaire families like hers can make money while kids go to school. Sure, yeah, hey, more money, more dividend checks coming while you're sitting on your butt around the pool, right? This is where we're at. And who's telling the truth about this? Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV needs your help. This is our fall or holiday season. I guess it would be holiday season, end of the year pledge drive. We need your help right now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Please call Free Speech TV. Please call Free Speech TV now and make a contribution. With a $30 donation, they'll send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. So the $30 donation. With a $60 donation, you get the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar. So, with all of the various talents and different pages and whatnot. With a $120 donation, you get Van Jones' book, Beyond the Messy Truth, and a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. So the $120 donation. With a $240 donation, you get Van Jones's book, Beyond the Messy Truth, plus Claudia Rankine's book, Citizen, plus the university bumper sticker. With a $360 gift, you get my book, Unequal Protection, plus Beyond the Messy Truth by Van Jones, plus Citizen by Claudia Rankine, and the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. That's all with a $340 gift. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch. And, or we can get a bunch of people coming to Portland and have a meet and greet pizza party, whatever works, but we'll work it out. Or occasionally I'll be back in D.C. In fact, I'll be in D.C. all next week. So, maybe we could meet there. So those are the premiums. You'll notice, by the way, $120, $240, $360, $30, and $60. All of these numbers are divisible by 12. And the reason why, with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month for a year. You can't, a $30 donation, I don't think you can put $2.50 on a credit card, or maybe you can, but it's probably not worth the effort. But with a the expense, because the credit card companies charge free speech every time they run something, and it's a very small amount, but on a $2.50 charge, it adds up. But anyway,
So with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month that gets charged to your credit card for a year. With a $120 donation, it's $10 a month. With a $240 donation, it's $20 a month. And with a $360 donation, that's $30 a month, all charged every month. So you can make a $360 contribution, get those gifts, but it only costs $30 a month. It's less than going out for dinner. So, well, I guess it depends on where you go, but you understand the point. In D.C., it's a lot less than going out to dinner. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV is doing really important work. Fewer than 2% of Free Speech TV viewers ever call and make a donation. So Free Speech TV right now is being supported by Free Speech TV's 2%. Please, if you're part of the 98% and you've never made a contribution to Free Speech TV, consider joining now. Consider making a contribution now. It means a lot to Free Speech TV. It means a lot to me and to our program. It keeps us going. It keeps Free Speech TV going. And of all the times in the political history of the United States, I can't think of any time that has been more critical, more crucial, more important, more vital in my lifetime than right now. I mean, yeah, there have been some real high points, but having a madman in the White House, having absolute, total, rampant corruption where the Republican Party has been completely bought out by a half a dozen or a couple of dozen billionaires, this is a crisis. This is an absolute, flat-out, screaming crisis. Please call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Thank you. It's an
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And on the line with us are Michelle Sanborn and Ellen Reed. Michelle is a community rights activist, the New Hampshire community organizer for the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, CELDF. CELDF.org is the website, and a volunteer coordinator with the New Hampshire Community Rights Network, which is nhcommunityrights.org is their website. CELDF, of course, CELDF.org. And New Hampshire House Representative Ellen Reed is the Democratic House Representative for Rockingham County, District 17, serving the towns of Newfield and Newmarket, New Hampshire. And as a former resident of New Hampshire, I lived there for 5 or 6 years. I'm pleased to have you both with us, Michelle, Ellen, or Representative Reed. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks to both of you. If I could start with Representative Ellen Reed, tell us what legislatively are you and Michelle and the people that you guys are working together with looking at doing here in New Hampshire?
Right. So this is a constitutional amendment which would amend the New Hampshire state constitution to ensure that communities have the right to self-government. Like many states, New Hampshire is a Dillon state, so we basically have to enable the towns to do anything, even anything minor. This year alone, we had several bills in the House to allow towns to do things like, say, ban plastic bags or whatever. The towns are not allowed to do that on their own. This would allow towns to have self-government only in the case of where it would help protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of that town or their natural environment. So it's confined. It wouldn't apply to all kinds of legislation, but it does emphasize the right of a community to protect its people and its natural resources.
Representative Reed, did you say New Hampshire is a Dillon state? It's a phrase I'd not heard before. Did I misunderstand?
Right, and actually I'll have to confess that as far as all this legal stuff, I'm kind of new to learning it myself. Dillon state, from what I understand, there are many states that are Dillon states, and it means that the towns and cities of a state are basically the state's babies. They can't do anything on their own. The state has to enable them to do anything.
Right.
Maine, on the other hand, is something called a home rule state, where the towns can do whatever they want unless the state steps in. So that would be the main difference. But I want to be very clear that this is not a home rule bill.
Right.
This is only limited to legislation that would protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the community or its natural resources.
Fascinating. So, Michelle Sanborn, you're a community organizer with CELDEF and the New Hampshire Community Rights Network. What are the community rights that are being trampled or threatened, or how is the community being harmed in a way that requires Representative Reed and her compatriots to create a change at law in the state of New Hampshire in order to remedy?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So in New Hampshire, we find that there's a number of different threats that are affecting the local communities across the state. And as Representative Reed stated, being a Dillon's Rule state, these communities have no local governing authority recognized by the state to enact the kinds of laws that would afford greater protections at the municipal level than what the state or federal government affords them. So really what we're dealing with is the concept of ceiling preemption versus preemption as a floor. And so state preemption and federal preemption is not necessarily a bad thing when it affords protections at the level of a floor, and then the community has the authority to then enact greater protections above and beyond that to suit their needs.
Right. So
the communities in New Hampshire have been affected by various projects such as large transmission lines, bringing industrial hydropower down from Quebec through the entire state to feed southern states, which has a significant impact on the environment as well as the health, safety, and welfare of those communities, the residents that live within those communities. Large groundwater withdrawal extraction, whether that be for bottling or just to be extracted and trucked elsewhere, maybe within the state, maybe outside of the state. There's also been issues with sludge spreading. There's renewable energy, which, again, on an industrial scale, many communities have found that when the control of those energy sources, who dictates what kind of energy sources we use, all of those things occur outside of the community, and even though it may be considered renewable by the general public, it's not a sustainable source of energy. So there have been a variety of different issues that have motivated communities to organize a grassroots effort to seek out representatives such as Ellen Reed that would be willing to introduce a constitutional amendment to the Bill of Rights of the New Hampshire Constitution.
Do you know the meaning of Dillon's Rule or where it came from? Forgive my ignorance.
Dillon's Rule. So he was a lawyer and he eventually became a judge, and this goes back really to the maybe late 1700s, early 1800s, where the concept occurred that the state is the parent and the municipality is the child. And so in order to protect corporate interests and to provide a more uniform concept of legislation that would be beneficial to corporate interests, that we would need, uniform legislative environment. And so the idea evolved that with the state as a parent and the municipality as a child, that the municipalities wouldn't have the authority any governing authority to enact laws that would be affecting, that kind of universal need for conformity and ease of, profit, basically, by corporate entities. So the idea is that, if in a Dillon's Rule state, a municipality does not have authority to enact any kind of a local law unless it has permission from the state. In a home rule state, a local municipality has authority to enact a local law that may not have been approved by the state, so long as it's not specifically prohibited by the state.
Right. So it's like the difference between asking permission and asking forgiveness.
It's like,
yeah.
So,
and the myth of home rule is that the state still has preemptive authority, regardless of whether you're Dillon's rule state or a home rule state. The state still has the authority to come in, and whether it's special interests that might be lobbying at that level, or whether it's just the perception of the legislature to affect local governing authority. But either way, what can happen is that they can come in and push for a law that then preempts anything that may have been passed at the local level and then overturn it.
Right. As they have done with meatpacking plants and fracking operations and other things around the world. We have less than a minute left. I wanted to get back to Representative Reed real quickly. Representative Ellen Reed, how do you package this to your voters? What's the bumper sticker, the soundbite? How do you communicate this quick and easy?
People have a right to self-rule. That's the basis of our entire country. It was the basis of the Declaration of Independence in the Constitution and many state constitutions. So there's no more basic relationship between a people and its community, and therefore that decision has to lie within the community. It can't lie with other powers, such as an energy company from Texas or a water company from the Midwest. It has to lie within the people of that community.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Sounds totally solid. Michelle Sanborn and State Representative Ellen Reed of New Hampshire. The website is CELDF, CELDF, as in Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund.org, CELDF.org. And thank you, and you can tweet at CELDF. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. And welcome back. Worst tax plan, worst jobs plan ever? That's the argument being made here by John Purr over at Daily Kos. The Republicans want to do a $6 trillion tax cut. They have $4.5 trillion worth of cuts that they have authorized themselves to do. $1 trillion in cutting Medicaid, $500 billion in cutting Medicare, ending your ability to deduct medical expenses from your income taxes, ending your ability to deduct student loan interest from your taxes, ending a lot of your protections in the marketplace, ending truckers' right. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, right? But they, all to give a $6 trillion tax break to their buddies. Over 40% of the stimulus, this is the Obama stimulus, came in the form of tax relief, which benefited 95% of Americans. You recall the Obama stimulus tax cut was a 1 year long, as I recall. Maybe it was as much as 2 years, but it was at least a 1 year long pause in collections of the Social Security tax, right? The FICA tax. And that actually created a measurable stimulus. Whereas the Reagan tax cuts produced no measurable stimulus. In fact, they produced a crash. And the George W. Bush tax cuts produced no measurable stimulus. They produced a crash. So, the Republicans are like completely ahistoric in this. They're completely ahistoric. And, we've got net neutrality. We've got all kinds of stuff going on here. We'll get to that in just a second. Brian in Dubuque, Iowa. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. I want to thank you quickly for your well wishes from the last time I called. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to give a heads up that Meredith Corporation, based out of Iowa, bought Time Incorporated.
With money from the Koch brothers.
With $650 million from the Koch brothers.
Yep. And I guarantee you they are not putting that money up because Time Magazine is making money hand over fist, and they really have to have this investment. It is nothing like that at all.
A Koch brothers spokesman said it was a passive investment.
Right. Yeah, if you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you.
I don't buy bridges.
Yeah,
There you go. You shouldn't buy Time magazine either. It's what has become obvious, Brian, is that these guys, not specifically the Kochs, but broadly speaking, and Rupert Murdoch really showed them the way back during the Reagan era, I believe, when he came to the United States after he left Australia, went to the UK, bought their press, screwed up their press, then came to the United States and built Fox News, bought the Wall Street Journal. Bought the New York Post, a bunch of other publications, radio stations, television stations all over the country. And, Murdoch was like, hey, without Fox News, you wouldn't have had the last 2 Republican presidents. It's that simple. And the Koch brothers are looking at this going, huh, yeah, okay, so Time magazine's for sale? We could buy that. We are looking at the right-wing media infrastructure being built out right in front of us, Brian. We've been watching it for 30 years. And it's amazing that Americans aren't more outraged by this. Brian, thank you for the call. Excellent point. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Hundreds of net neutrality protests nationwide is the headline in the press release from fightforthefuture.org. Evan Greer sent me this morning. He's the campaign director of Fight for the Future. There's numerous websites, battleforthenet.com, fightforthefuture.org. They're working on this stuff. As backlash continues to grow, internet users outraged by Verizon lawyer turned FCC chairman Ajit Pai's plan to gut net neutrality are planning on more than 200 protests at Verizon retail stores and congressional offices across the country on Thursday, December 7th. That's a week from this Thursday, so about 11 days down the road. The protests will highlight the company's role lobbying to kill rules that prevent telecom giants from charging extra fees, engage in censorship, or controlling what internet users see and do through discriminatory throttling. Protesters will carry signs calling on the members of Congress to speak out against Verizon's attack on net neutrality and publicly oppose the FCC plan, which is expected to be released this week. In fact, I believe Thursday is the day that there's supposed to be a vote, or the plan is supposed to be rolled out anyway. More than 500,000 phone calls have been directed to Congress through the battleforthenet.com website. Ajit Pai's plan contains a total repeal of net neutrality protections, posing a grave threat to the future of internet expression, access to information, and small businesses, particularly for communities of color and low-income communities. So this is a BFD. It's a big deal. So pay attention. And we will continue to be discussing this. Fascinating piece in the Financial Times today. Edward Luce writing, Donald Trump's unwitting surrender to China. And he starts out talking about how it was 60 years ago that Russia just fried our brains by putting Sputnik up. Donald Trump would have been 11 years old at the time. Today's Sputnik moment, by contrast, appears to have bypassed America's 71-year-old president because China is openly planning to develop artificial intelligence. And he notes China's AI ambitions pose a greater long-term threat to U.S. security than North Korea's nuclear reach. No obvious barrier to China's aim of leapfrogging the U.S. Quote, whoever becomes the leader in AI will become the ruler of the world, said Vladimir Putin recently. His observation followed China's announcement that it intends to withdraw even with the U.S. by with the U.S. by 2020, overtake us in 2025, and dominate artificial intelligence by 2030, which is 13 years from now. America's leading technologists believe China's ambitions are plausible. Eric Schmidt, the executive chairman of Alphabet, which owns Google, he said, just stop for a second. The Chinese government said that. It's amazing. I mean, the Chinese are really moving forward and moving forward fast. It's amazing. Carol
what's most amazing is that we keep handing them the technology because we've got corporations that, for them, it's more important to have cheap labor in China and no environmental regulations than it is to protect the United States, the economy of the United States, or the security of the United States. That's the bottom line. And those corporations range from ones that we all know, like Microsoft and Apple, to companies like Ivanka Trump's little clothing line. Carol in Hemet, California. Hey, Carol, what's on your mind today?
Yes, you mentioned earlier in the program that you wondered how much of cost-taking veterans had been taken into account with budget. And it brought to my mind a documentary that I saw recently called Delay, Deny, Hope You Die, and it's about the military open burn pits. Do you know about this? Or discussed in the program?
Yeah, this is they got an exception to our environmental rules and have been exploiting it aggressively.
And also in August, there was a lawsuit by a group of, I believe, 40 Marines. Mm-hmm. And that lawsuit in August against KBR, they lost that lawsuit.
The Marines lost the lawsuit against KBR for doing an open burn and poisoning them?
Right. The judge said that KBR could not be held responsible for what was basically a military decision to get rid of their garbage through open burn. So KBR did open burn, and they were in charge of all of that stuff, you know. So there you go. And so now what they do, that's going to be a heck of a thing for them to try to, sue the Pentagon, the military.
Yeah. This is what happens when the Supreme Court says that individual billionaires or even industries or trade groups can own their own politicians. You end up with industries and trade groups, in this case polluting and poisoning industries, military defense contractors and whatnot, saying, oh, cool, we can own our own politicians. We're going to have one change the law, or a bunch of them change the law. That's insane. Carol, thanks for the heads up on that. That's terrible. Jane in Washington, D.C. Hey, Jane, we got just a minute to the break. What's up?
Yeah, hey, I'm a national security policy expert, and I've been listening to what you've been talking about, and there's a guy a while back talking about the fact that the Trump administration is pretty much wholesale going about turning the U.S. government upside down, and that is, in fact, what's happening. There's one showstopper here that scares me to death, that keeps me up at night. And that's the fact that the State Department is being dismantled. Right. And the State Department is the one thing that keeps disagreements into becoming wars.
Yeah, people need to think of it in terms of defense fights wars, state prevents wars.
State prevents wars and state ends wars.
Right.
And even the defense secretary has said, over here, we need some diplomats. Hey, guys, you can't do this.
Right.
And Rex Tillerson seems to be brain dead and clueless about the imports.
Or he's following Steve Bannon's
orders.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jane, we're out of time. I'm sorry, but this is a brilliant. I hope you can call back next week and we can get into a longer conversation about it. Thank you.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back with more of your calls right after this break. Americans have taken a lot of hits in the last year since Donald Trump was selected president by a small number of people in a few electoral states, even though the vast majority of Americans, well, 3 million to be exact, preferred Hillary Clinton, preferred a Democrat over Donald Trump. But, hey, you got to respect the slave owners of the South who got you know, the Second Amendment written in there to protect their slave patrols, and who got the you know, representation, the electoral college in there, so that they could make sure that they had their interests defended. It's tragic, but here it is. So now we are looking at dangers, you know, to our healthcare system. As a result of the Republicans, we're looking at dangers to the climate. In fact, the possibility, well, not the possibility, the reality that we are in the midst of the sixth great extinction. And we're talking, when we talk extinctions, we're talking, you know, major problems that have, you know, essentially destroyed the earth in the past. As climate change, nuclear war, the risk has gone up with Donald Trump, tax breaks for the super wealthy, public education. Betsy DeVos committed to destroying our public education system and replacing it with a for-profit one so that billionaire families like hers can make money while kids go to school. Sure, yeah, hey, more money, more dividend checks coming while you're sitting on your butt around the pool, right? This is where we're at. And who's telling the truth about this? Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV needs your help. This is our fall or holiday season. I guess it would be holiday season, end of the year pledge drive. We need your help right now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Please call Free Speech TV. Please call Free Speech TV now and make a contribution. With a $30 donation, they'll send you a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. So the $30 donation. With a $60 donation, you get the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar. So, you know, with all of the various talents and different pages and whatnot. With a $120 donation, you get Van Jones' book, Beyond the Messy Truth, and a Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. It's with a $120 donation. With a $240 donation, you get Van Jones's book, Beyond the Messy Truth, plus Claudia Rankine's book, Citizen, plus the university bumper sticker. With a $360 gift, you get my book, Unequal Protection, plus Beyond the Messy Truth by Van Jones, plus Citizen by Claudia Rankine, and the Free Speech TV 16-month calendar, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. That's all with a $340 gift. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch. And, you know, or we can get a bunch of people coming to Portland and have a meet and greet pizza party, whatever works, but we'll work it out. Or occasionally I'll be back in D.C. In fact, I'll be in D.C. all next week, so, you know, maybe we could meet there. So those are the premiums. You'll notice, by the way, $120, $240, $360, $30 and $60. All of these numbers are divisible by 12. And the reason why, with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month for a year. You can't, you know, a $30 donation, I don't think you can put $2.50 on a credit card, or maybe you can, but it's probably not worth the effort. But with a 60, I mean the expense, because the credit card companies charge free speech every time they run something, and it's a very small amount, but on a $2.50 charge, it adds up. But anyway, so with a $60 donation, that's $5 a month that gets charged to your credit card for a year. With a $120 donation, it's $10 a month. With a $240 donation, it's $20 a month. And with a $360 donation, that's $30 a month, all charged every month. So you know, you can make a $360 contribution, get those gifts, but it only costs, you know, $30 a month. It's you know, less than going out for dinner. So, well, I guess it depends on where you go, but you understand the point. In D.C., it's a lot less than going out to dinner. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV is doing really important work. Fewer than 2% of Free Speech TV viewers ever call and make a donation. So Free Speech TV right now is being supported by Free Speech TV's 2%. Please, if you're part of the 98% and you've never made a contribution to Free Speech TV, consider joining now. Consider making a contribution now. It means a lot to Free Speech TV. It means a lot to me and to our program. It keeps us going. It keeps Free Speech TV going. And of all the times in the political history of the United States, I can't think of any time that has been more critical, more crucial, more important, more vital in my lifetime than right now. I mean, yeah, there have been some real high points, but having a madman in the White House, having absolute, total, rampant corruption where the Republican Party has been completely bought out by a half a dozen or a couple of dozen billionaires, this is a crisis. This is an absolute, flat-out, screaming crisis. Please call now, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Welcome back to the final half hour of today's program. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Cynthia in Huron, Ohio. Hey, Cynthia, what's on your mind today?
Hi. We've been long-time listeners, but this is the very first time we've called. Back to the tax cut issue, we have a couple quick questions. If you know, or maybe someone out there listening knows, we represent the thousands and thousands of people who are subcontractors who pool RVs and boats all over the United States and Canada, pulling RVs to the dealerships, transporting boats. These folks do this with not the large semi-trucks, but, the large 350 dually trucks. So when we come to our tax time, we receive a 1099 through the company that we leased from, which shows an amount, but we don't make anything close to that because we do a lot of itemizing our deductions for this type of work. Our question, and we listened earlier to the woman who called in who was a operator owner, besides this ending completely our ability to earn a living if this goes through and we cannot itemize. The other quick question that we had is this going to be retroactive for 2017, or when will this go into effect if indeed this passes?
Right. Well, Cynthia, the first thing to know is that there's no this yet. Will this go into effect? The House bill says one thing, the Senate bill says another thing.
Right.
They're going to have to go to conference committee to get reconciled into a single piece of legislation, and then we'll be able to say, okay, definitively, this is what the Republicans are planning. But there are a number of things in common among both pieces of legislation. And both pieces of legislation, the House and the Senate Republican tax scams, both of them over the course of the next decade will radically raise taxes and cut benefits to people making less than $50,000 a year, less than $70,000 really. And even people making less than $100,000 or $150,000 over time will see their taxes go up, whereas people who are making over $100,000, over $200,000, and certainly over $1 million will see their taxes go down and continue to go down over the long haul. With regard to specific deductions, if you are incorporated, if you've created an LLC, a sub-S corp, any kind of corporate form.
No, most of these thousands of people who do this are not LLC. We're just subcontractors who lease our trucks out through a large agency because we receive their DOT numbers and their insurance coverage for the vehicles that we tow. So none of these folks would be LLC. A typical 1099 might show that these kind of individuals make $60,000, $70,000. But going to your CPA and itemizing the deductions and all of the things that you have saved per every trip brings you down to not much in the form of wages. Our concern was, and we're doing everything we can as individuals politically to try and stop this. But if it would occur, as you said, it hasn't. We can't find anything in the literature or the readings if this is going to affect the taxes that we try to put forth for 2017, or would this go into effect for next year?
Right.
If this were to, in fact, they keep talking about, you're going to get this Christmas present, blah, blah, blah. If this were to go into effect for this calendar year, we would be finished, along with thousands and thousands of others subcontractors who do this type of work.
Right, because it's too late to incorporate. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and most
absolutely.
people don't realize these RVs get to the dealerships this way. This is how it's done all over the country, and we also do it up into Canada and also transport boats for people who want their boat from, point A to point B. This is how it's done. And none of these folks would be an LLC or incorporated, and they would all be subcontractors.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom, because your 1099 could show that you made $80,000, and without the ability to itemize and also losing the per diem, which these folks also have, you would owe taxes on an incredible amount of money that just isn't there.
You're right.
None of us would.
Again, because we don't have a bill yet, I don't know how extensive the loss of deductibility is going to be for individual taxpayers. The Republican plan is to raise the standard deduction up to the point where, I think it was 24 grand, something like
24.
that. Up to the point where a family of four would actually have more than $24,000 in deductions just by virtue of having two kids, assuming that they have a mortgage. So their deduction would be well over $24,000. So they're going to lose. A family of 5, 6, 7, 8, they're going to lose big. But a family of 3 or a family of 2 will presumably have some gains if they're making over $100,000 a year.
Which is enough.
Right, but in terms of the deductibility, I don't know. There's so many questions, and these tax bills are somewhat different in both regards. I think the person who called earlier to speak to the owner-operator who said the easy solution is to simply incorporate. Yeah, and as I said, that's going to cost you a couple $1,000s a year. I think, probably my total expenses for this show for, maintaining the corporation, registering in the state, and having a CPA is, I don't know, $5,000, $10,000 a year, something in that neighborhood.
Right.
So, if you're running a business that's a six-figure business, you can do that. And that may be what people are going to have to do. I don't know.
We're those folks, we're the baby boomers, so we're in our late 60s, and what we have chosen to do with the fear that these people might go ahead and pass this is my husband has decided to go to a situation where he's driving for a company and therefore is considered an employee.
Right.
That would be, at 68 years old, our only way to survive.
That's amazing.
And, again, the number of people that this would affect, not just like you said and she said earlier, the owner-operators, but are these individuals who work their tookuses off transporting these vehicles and such all over the country who would never be able to pay the amount of taxes that would be expected from them.
Right.
And
quick question, Cynthia, if I may.
Surely.
And apologies to our listeners. This is purely personal. How do I get in touch with you or an organization? I own a boat in D.C. I'm living in Portland. I'm thinking of moving it. Who do I talk to?
Well, typically I would have said back then you could talk to my husband, but you can call some of the larger corporations such as Indiana Transport, or just go on the web and look up in your area that you're living now. There's probably individuals who do what we did and transport boats.
Yeah.
From A to B. I mean, we live here in Ohio, but Kevin would transport boats from the East Coast to the West Coast for people or anywhere. I mean, we've taken boats up to Saskatchewan. We've done all kinds of things like that.
Yeah.
But that's how you would transport. You would get someone to transport your boat.
Fascinating stuff.
I would do it quickly because if this travesty goes through, none of these individuals will be transporting anything.
They may be out of business really quickly. That which is just absolutely amazing. Cynthia, I have to move along, but thank you so much. You're a wealth of information, and I appreciate the call. Thank you for listening to SiriusXM. Tim in Beltsville, Maryland. Hey, Tim, what's up?
Yeah, hey Tom, how you doing?
Good.
Quick question for you. Before I called you, I was listening to an advertisement on another station, Kaspersky Labs. They're advertising their software, and as you know, after the first week of December, no government agency is allowed to use that software anymore. So how is the government allowing them to continue to advertise to normal citizens when they themselves have already recognized this as being a suspect form of software, and they're not even going to let their own agencies use this?
Right.
Why are they allowing them to sell it to us?
Yeah, for people who don't know what we're talking about, Kaspersky is one of the big 4 or 5 antivirus companies in the world. They're based out of Russia. They were started by, and I believe still run by, a fellow who was a computer security expert who had some associations with the KGB, which is apparently almost impossible not to have if you are that, at that level in that country, and which is not to excuse it or anything. And the federal government is saying this is a security risk. But capitalism, hey, capitalism is the principal value of the Republican Party and of apparently of the United States of America. So if somebody wants to make a buck off the American citizen, regardless of what country they're coming from, regardless of what country's intelligence service they may be affiliated with, America stands behind making a buck. Apparently that's the answer, Tim. I can't come up with a better one. But yeah, I think it's strange is not quite the right word, but Kaspersky's got to be in a lot of trouble economically. It's particularly losing these government contracts. The other thing is, my understanding is that a lot of these defense contractors, the company, Ed Snowden worked for a defense contractor. A lot of these contractors are still using Kaspersky's software, and if they really and genuinely are a security threat, if they're providing back doors into American computers to a foreign state, which is implicit in this argument, if not explicit, you would think that would be a big deal. Tim, thank you for the call. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And on the other hand, if they're clean as the driven snow and it's just a coincidence that they happen to be there in Russia, then why are we banning them from our military? I mean, somebody should lay this stuff out. And welcome back. Pauline, watching Free Speech TV in White Lake, Michigan. Hey, Pauline, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom.
Hey.
Listening to your guests talk about community control,
mm-hmm.
I was inspired to call you because I got kind of politically involved because of your program. You said get out there. I did.
Good.
And what they were describing is very similar to what's happening in Michigan. With the plastic bags and not being able to regulate and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And one bill in particular, House Bill 4503 and Senate Bill 329 here in Michigan, would take away the municipality's right to regulate short-term rentals, a la Airbnb.
So Airbnb just bought the legislature of the state of Michigan.
Yeah, and not just Michigan. They've been doing this state by state.
Of course.
What they want to do is be able to say we can do whatever we want, and not have it be illegal for anybody to pass anti-Airbnb rules or regulate them in any way or require any kind of payments.
Right. That is such an infringement of local control, of local rights, Michigan now is virtually entirely controlled by the Republican Party, which has spent the better part of the last 70 years screaming about states' rights. Of course, what they meant was the right to discriminate against people of color. But nonetheless, I mean, for the last 70 years, the Republican Party has been screaming about states' rights. And, states' rights was one of the big arguments against the New Deal back in the 1930s. How dare you create the CCC and the WPA and the TVA and all this other stuff? You're usurping the right of individual states to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. It's crazy. I mean,
it is crazy. And here's the thing: who knows better what goes on, say, in my neighborhood as opposed to a touristy area like the West Coast, say the sand dunes.
Right.
These are entirely different areas, and the municipalities would know best where they can have Airbnb or VRBO, companies like that.
Yeah.
And some people rely on them and like to do it during, say, tourist season.
Yep.
But not me. I've got a party house a couple doors down. They're changing the neighborhood, and people aren't allowed to say anything.
Yeah, it's also contributing to rapid gentrification in a lot of areas. And you're right, Pauline. The needs of Charlevoix, Michigan, a resort town. My mom grew up in Charlevoix, and she put herself through Michigan State University just doing lifeguard work in the summers in Charlevoix. And the needs of Charlevoix are very different from the needs of Flint, for example. Very different from the needs of Lansing, very different from the needs of Detroit, which are very different from the needs of Novi or Wayne or North. North. It's just there's the idea that a state can impose one size fits all on all its towns and say you may not speak back to this. That's outrageous. It's just outrageous.
So we have to say no.
Yeah. So this is active legislation in the House and Senate of the state of Michigan, Pauline, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're watching or listening in Michigan, be sure to contact your state representative and your state senator and tell them no, hell no. We would like our town to be able to make decisions for our town. Pauline, thank you for the heads up on that. I appreciate it. And thanks for watching Free Speech. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Let's check in with your calls. Jeff in Portland. Hey, Jeff. Thanks for calling. What's up?
Hey, Tom. Glad you had a good holiday weekend, and thanks so much for taking my call.
Thank you.
Whether I'm calling you or Norman Goldman's show, I usually like to start off with a provocative rant. But given that you and all the listeners already know this grand tax scam has only one intention, which is to satisfy the oligarchs and entrench the oligarchy. I just wanted to ask you two quick questions, if I may, Tom.
Go for it.
Okay. Number one, in reference to Stephen Rosenfeld's weekend post on alternate.org, are big-name Democrats, do you think, are they being vocal enough, or do we need to turn up the heat on the Democratic leadership to get them to be bigger and louder, warning the Republicans of the negative political consequences if this scam passes?
It's the wrong question, Jeff. Your big-name Democrats and even your small-name Democrats are constantly trying to get the media's attention. Bernie went to Canada. He did a stunt. He went to Canada and did a tour of health facilities in order to raise American consciousness about single-payer health care. It was completely ignored by the American media. If you go to the Congressional Progressive Caucus's website, which you can easily find with a quick search, a DuckDuckGo search or whatever you want, you go to their and get on their mailing list, their media mailing list, and I'm assuming that individuals can get on that list as well. I get a press release from them at least 3 or 4 days a week, every single week. And every one of those press releases, it's not just a press release that goes out. Every one of those press releases is announcing an event. Members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and there's about 100 of them. It's I believe the second largest caucus in Congress. It might be the largest caucus in Congress that is not ethnically based. The members of the Progressive Caucus in the House and the Senate are constantly doing things. The media refuses to cover them. On the other hand, if a Tea Partier, if some right-wing crazy from Kansas or Oklahoma or some whatever, if the Tea Party holds a meeting and 22 people show up, it becomes front page news in all the networks. But if the Progressive Caucus holds a meeting and 1,000 people show up, I was in Washington, D.C., Marianne Williamson came to town. Thousands of people came to hear her speak. Not a word. Well, maybe it was covered in some obscure page in the Washington Post. But basically, I mean, a lot of this stuff should be national news. None of it gets to be national news. So the question is not, should the Democrats be speaking out? They're speaking out loud and constantly. The question should be, why is the media refusing to cover them? Second question, Jeff.
Okay, yeah, fair enough, and I hear you on that. Number two, following up on Mark in San Francisco's call, Tom, it does feel like this scam, if this scam passes, we'll be back on the cliffs that the robber barons of the Roaring Twenties sent us over. You know, it feels like this is the end game that the modern Republicans have been working toward for many years now. So, as a great scholar of American history, like yourself, I know you're aware of how FDR only had to rescue us. Not only had to rescue us from the Great Depression, but simultaneously had to defeat a homegrown Nazi movement led by the highly anti-Semitic radio host Father Coughlin.
Right. With a little help from the pilot. What was his name? Yeah, Charles Lindbergh. Yeah.
Yeah. And Coughlin had 30 million listeners. How concerned are you?
And that was a time when America only had 100 million citizens. Forgive my interruption, Jeff.
Yeah, that puts a great emphasis on it. So how concerned are you with history repeating itself in this regard, given we have an orange chump Nazi sympathizer in the White House?
Yeah. I don't think it takes a Nazi sympathizer to produce a Great Depression. I'm very concerned about it. It's why back in 2014 I wrote a book called The Crash of 2016. I'm still fully expecting that to happen, although most of the book is not about economics, it's about politics, and it's about these 80-year cycles of boom, bust, crash, and war. And I'm predicting that we are going to have an economic disaster followed by a world war. And I still hold to that prediction. I think it's going to happen next year. And, I missed it by a couple of years in the title of the book. But, yeah, this is a huge concern of mine, Jeff, and one that I think that the Republicans have just been moving us in the direction of over and over and over again. Jeff, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Charles in Opelika, Florida. Hey, Charles, what's up?
Yeah, how you doing today, Tom?
Great. What's up, Charles?
My thing is with these telecommunication companies, they want to gut net neutrality. Then what are we using as far as tools to start taking away their tax incentives? Like whatever tools that they use to offshore money or just to take away from the taxpayers. I think we should try to attack them in that way and let them know that we run this country.
Charles, philosophically, I completely agree with you. These guys are exploiting the system and getting rich doing it, and we should do away with their ability to get rich. But that tool is not going to be available to us, particularly as long as Republicans control the House and Senate. But the tools that we can use to take on net neutrality can be found at battleforthenet.com, fightforthefuture.org, and verizonprotests.com. So I encourage people to check those things out. Charles, thank you for the call. Mike in Richmond, Illinois. Hey, Mike, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how are you doing?
Good. What's up?
Have you heard of a book called Rise of the Robots and the Jobless Future by Martin Ford?
I have not.
Yeah, it's about the impact on employment because of automation and robots, and with Tesla coming up with self-driving cars. I talked to an engineer. He says they can have the trucks be like driven like unmanned drones.
Yeah, no, I got it. Is he proposing a universal basic income as a solution?
Yeah, that's one of the solutions. One of the impacts was stagnating wages.
Yeah. And, what's the author's name, Mike, real quick?
Martin Ford.
Martin Ford. Okay, I'll have to check it out. Thank you, Mike, for the heads up on that. Thank you all for being with us this week. It's been a fascinating, Monday. It's been a fascinating day. It was a fascinating weekend. Frankly, at how little happened. Anyhow, we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget democracy's not a spectator sport. Get out there, get active, tag You're It. See you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.